Call to order the meeting of the Class Board of Selectmen, Tuesday, July 11, 2017. Call to order, roll call.
Kevin McCarthy here.
Diane Kennedy here.
Paul Short here.
Jack Kennedy here. Steve Domergue.
All those who wish to join us in the Pledge of Allegiance, will you do so? Pledge of Allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Next up is public comment. Items that are not on the agenda from the public, or items to be discussed. Okay. Next up is license permits event, Sandy Beach 100th Anniversary Security Plan update. Come on up, introduce yourself.
Can I get the, we want to have all the public safety folks
Yes,
up,
sure.
too. I think it makes sense.
She's coming.
Laura's here somewhere. I had planned to have all of them. They're all here.
So the reason why we wanted to review this is just, this is relatively new. Fireworks in our harbor, fireworks up and down the North Shore, South Shore during 4th of July. This is a little bit different from our town. We've taken over Memorial Day as our holiday here. 4th of July is Hingham, and 4th of July is generally fireworks elsewhere. So that's why the discussion, this is relatively new. This has not been, I don't think, done recently except for some private fireworks. This is, although the private, it's going to be visible to pretty much the entire town. So that's why we wanted to review the options that are there.
So what you now have, what I give the board is a quick one-page cover, and then there was a bunch of materials that were put into the packet, including the signed-off application, the harbor security maps and plan, the updated police plan, which Bill's also prepared, and a Coast Guard letter, which gave, they've determined that this particular show doesn't need a Coast Guard permit. It doesn't, it's not affecting a navigable waterway where that is happening. Sandy Beach is not considered navigable. And there was a supplemental meeting of the event committee and with Annette and our public safety folks and Jen, and there was a further review done of you make sure we had all the ducks in a row, find out what was going on, making sure we have everything covered. So we have all the, we have Lori doing water and Bill and Bob doing land. What's since ramped up, and I'll have them explain more. It's going to be treated, I won't say like a baby triathlon, but with some of the key aspects of a triathlon, like the mobile command center. Bill's arranged for that from it's Metro Lec, right?
Metro Lec, yeah.
So that'll be the command post for the evening. Lori has now engaged both Hull, who's going to be providing a couple of boats. The Coast Guard, which I just saw an email, said they're looking to provide a boat as well. They'll be sending one out. I think they have one in Situate in the summer. They're going to send that over. Situate's on notice as a backup in case we need them for any kind of emergency support. And I think you've arranged, Bill, for some other folks to come in and help with crowd control. Or
Yeah, correct. I've tapped Metro Lec, which is the law enforcement council that we belong to. It's a group of 42 cities and towns, basically Metro and south of Boston. Where we pool resources, so we're going to have their bike unit assist us with this, and they'll provide us with bicycle officers just for this event. And I think the bicycle officers will be much more effective, getting through any traffic and crowds like that, and they'll be dedicated to this event.
And I believe we have the standard EMT support and
We're going to spin up the second ambulance at the ALS level, and that will be a triage unit that will be stationed at the beach in case we have anything going on. Then obviously our regular mutual aid resources, our neighboring towns have been made aware of the situation and they are available as needed.
I think one of the key aspects of it is that after further conversation, the barge is now pulled further offshore. So it's actually backing almost up to the westerly round rock. Am I saying that correctly? I've seen it from the sea, but I couldn't name it if I had to. But so it'll be about 1,500 feet from shore, which does two things. It gives more of a safety protection. It puts it, I think, in a better area, and Laura can explain better for security, and they're gonna use those, I know you saw them, Jack, those big orange buoy things to help demarc the area between the rocks to say, don't come in here.
Yeah,
And it'll help.
They got the yacht club racing booths.
So there's that, and
How
and
much
then that,
how much fur, you mind?
how much further? Yeah.
How much further is that from when we last spoke?
That's about 1,000 feet. It's about triple as far as away. as it
Triple
was.
further.
Yeah.
And how much, from that spot then, how close is that to anything with these fireworks or possibly?
Well, from the land side, it's 15. It's no closer than 1,500 feet. I think there's actually in the packet. There's
Right,
a
but from
map.
the point the fireworks go off, what's the radius on the fireworks?
Well, they require 70 feet per 1 inch of shell, so that basically is 420 feet. So the radius of the fireworks is 420 feet.
Oh, 420 feet. And so the provisions are made to make sure that's clear of boaters and
Correct. Yes.
swimmers and observers and so forth.
Yeah. Except fish. The sharks can watch it.
Well, there's plenty of fish out there. There's whales
Yeah.
spotted out there.
Keep seeing people catching
So
bass.
the land side will be protected, and also it should enhance the ability for people to see it a little further along the coast, particularly at Black Rock Beach, I believe, and even down towards the harbor. Particularly if people just pull out of the harbor on their boats, they can see them quite nicely off Whitehead as opposed to having to go into that other area. So I think that, and again, the other aspect of this is we just literally have no idea if this is going to be, hopefully it'll be a very well attended clam bake and
It will.
make lots of money. But I don't know how many other people will come. I mean, we just did a whole big barrage of fireworks on the 4th of July. A lot of people on vacation in the summer. But the beach was full over the weekend. So, I mean, those regular beach crowd control want to be there. And I think we're prepared. And again, you're free to ask the chiefs and the harbor master anything else at this point. And I don't know if you folks have anything you
Yeah.
want to add.
I'm Rob Lawrence, I'm the president of Sandy Beach Association. Annette Sawchuk is a lead on this whole project, and she knows more about this project than anybody else. So my direct questions to her, and I will try to support that.
I don't remember what you said you were gonna do about parking.
I have contacted the high school. They have agreed to let us use the parking lot. There are about 350 spaces in both parking lots. We have hired 3 shuttle buses, the same buses that the triathlon uses, that will shuttle people back and forth.
So
from the high school.
everybody's gonna get staged out of the high school and brought down to the beach, is that just like the triathlon?
Well, once
Well, no, once the parking lot's full, the parking lot will be open, so they
Okay.
can, there's no reason not to let people in the parking lot.
Yeah.
So the parking lot, when the parking lot fills, they will be directed to the high school. And that will be in our publicity, so they may wanna just go to the high school first and not even, because they're gonna assume it's gonna be full.
I have a question, Chief Quigley. Is there anything you have to do different since buses will be running? And
So-
suggest the route first?
So we're gonna make Atlantic Ave from Beach Street out to Jerusalem Road, one-way northbound. So the buses can come in through the cove, I think is the easiest way. And we'll make that one-way northbound at about 6:30 at night. And there'll be a bus stop at the north end of the beach, which will be lighted. We're gonna bring in temporary lighting to light that area, and obviously dim the lighting during the show, and light it back up at the end, so people, have some direction as to where to go and where to pick up those buses. And we'll shoot them back out on Nichols Road. And Nichols will be closed also, except to emergency vehicles, buses, and residents, local residents of that street.
Through traffic.
Correct.
Where is the, excuse me, where is the easterly boundary for boat anchorage?
I would probably say, if there are boats, coming out of Cohasset Harbor, they'll just stay outside in the flats. And anybody else, we'll just keep them back about, 700 feet.
So the reason I'm asking is, if you move it back, is it 450 feet required perimeter around the barge?
Approximately, yes.
You could find people sinking an anchor right in the middle of the Western Channel, and that's why I'm asking.
Yeah, no, hull boats will be at each end of the western channel
Okay.
to keep people out of there.
Okay.
So they won't bring anchoring in the channel.
Seemed to be that.
But they can go outside the channel.
Seemed to be the boats being there has been one of our major concerns. It seemed to me in the plan here that it may be that the fireworks don't go off until probably Laurie says the area is clear or something like that. I would think we would do that, right?
I can them and just say, that's fine, go ahead.
I think it's built into the procedure some way would be, you have to okay that the water's clear.
Well, it's the fire department's
You.
responsibility for code compliance, so the fireworks will not go off if anybody's within that perimeter that has been established.
And you'll get
So
that
that's real
okay from
simple.
Laurie and her
Yeah,
crew. Yeah, right.
absolutely.
You gotta have someone at the station, you're not gonna have someone on the, you have someone on the water? I didn't ask that.
We're still, whether or not Assistant Chief Dockery ends up, with Laurie on one of the boats during the show itself is still being determined. We'll be out there ahead of the show going off. Obviously, we need to make sure that they are complying with everything that they need to comply with. So, this is the company that's done this, this is what they do. So, as long as they're, and we have a checklist of things that we have to, check all the boxes and make sure everything's done and done properly. But we won't be on the barge when it's going off, that's for sure. And whether or not one of us is out on the water is still to be determined.
This is the same fireworks company that did the ones in Hull a couple of weeks ago. They're the same company, so they are familiar with that.
Everybody's been sharpening their pencils in there, what's a C thing?
AC thing?
Compass.
Not a compass, or when you chart courses? What is that?
Right. Just trying to make a good
Divide.
analogy.
Remind me not to go
Help
sailing
out.
with you.
Yeah.
Use that S thing, and we'll say-
Divider and a barrel rule. They've been sharpening those.
From Long Island.
When you're on the B thing, the boat.
Yeah, that boat thing, yeah.
The rudder.
So I watch from the land. And there's been a lot of communication and confidence. 2 weeks ago, we had the collapse of the old salt house, literally the same as the Selectmen's meeting. So it's quieted down, thankfully. And the nice thing is that, of course, mutual aid is great, all on land and sea. So, and the Coast Guard's been very cooperative. They have a gigantic list of fireworks shows. They've been working their way down through the community. So literally, Lori was, I've been copied on some of the emails, and they literally responded affirmatively about an hour or two ago. So we're all good with them now. And again, we'll see who comes. I mean, I'm sure there'll be some people who want to be on the ocean to watch it. And actually, the one nice thing about this is going to be a trial run to some extent, because I think fireworks is something that's being talked about for the 250th, and this will be a dry run. And out of this, we now have a plan. The nice thing is we now have a fireworks management plan, right? And we'll see how it looks too. I mean, another thing is we got a test run to see how far you can see the fireworks, which is actually an important thing too. That's when we don't have a lot of fireworks sites. Nantasket is built for giant crowds.
Right.
And even Situate Harbor is just naturally designed differently. You can't really put fireworks in the harbor here. You could, I guess, but let's not talk about it.
Yeah.
Let's just
Never
deal with
going
this.
there.
So I feel vastly better than I did 2 weeks ago, and I appreciate the work that Annette and Robin and their folks have done in cooperating with Bill and Bob and Lori. So
I want to correct, not just Annette and Robin, we have a whole.
and a whole team.
Board.
And I said your whole team.
Board, everyone is
Your whole team.
crucial to the project.
I just have a question about some of the mutual aid, like MetroLink that you mentioned.
Yep.
Is that something that we pay for or gets paid for?
No, Sandy Beach will foot the bill.
But there is a bill attached to that.
Correct.
Right.
Those offices, they could be from Attleboro, they could be from, it could be from any one of the metro cities of town. Those guys
They
from
put the
Hanover,
call out.
Hull, Hingham, but it'll be billed as a detail.
Okay.
Now, is that in addition to the 12?
No, this is.
This includes the
Includes, yeah.
okay.
Total 12, that's a lot.
The equipment's free.
The magnificent
The-
12.
You might want to pass a hat, right?
Ocean's 12.
They're not a cheating.
But I think all the equipment is just part of our team. I mean, we're part of this.
The town
mutual
pays
group.
a yearly fee to belong to Metrowec, and we supply in-kind manpower, and we were able to receive that back. If there's something the town is holding, like the 250th, we wouldn't have to pay for that.
Great.
Okay. I thought it was important to kind of review this, because this is gonna be a dry run for the 250. I presume we'll have fireworks then. Or there'll be additional fireworks that may be put on by the town at time between now and whenever. It gives an idea of who's involved, what's involved with the staging, what's involved with parking, public safety, the water, everything else that goes along with it. So
And
Thank you.
one of the things that we do, I'm not sure if the board knows, but obviously Bob and the other folks know. After any of these events, we hold an after-actions meeting, and we, write down the good, the bad, and the ugly, and we tighten up plans for the next year. So we'll actually have a document after this. It's part of our procedure, and we literally get around a round table, and we catalog the citizens if there's complaints that come in, and we really just disassemble the whole event.
I mean, that was good after the first triathlon where it was rather hectic. And
Bodies
that-
were floating
that-
up like it was Tarawa.
And it basically has now come down to almost routine at this point, so, which is a nice thing. And that's from the results of that after-hours report.
And the fact that the tents had a couple of, and has a history now, of doing some big events down there is actually helpful.
Yeah.
This is obviously a little bit different, but it's, there's, for a small town, we have a great foundation for these things, which is not common. And we have a good team, so.
Great.
Any questions?
Okay, thank you.
Good.
Okay.
All right.
Thanks,
Thank you all very
everybody.
much. Appreciate it.
Good work.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Good luck, everybody.
Before we conclude, may I just read a citation from Governor Baker? On behalf of the citizens of the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, I am pleased to confer upon this governor's citation a recognition of a 100th anniversary, this 22nd day of July in the year 2017, and signed by the governor and the lieutenant governor. You might just want to pass it around.
Very nice.
Congratulations.
Happy
Congratulations.
birthday, yeah.
We will-
Are you
Let's have a
voting
party.
after the fact, or is it?
That is, they don't really have to vote if they want to.
Okay, so we're good.
You got your, you got
Good
your,
to
you
go.
got your
Start
approvals.
advertising.
No.
Okay,
Yeah,
we
it's
will
already
be
voted on. It's a
having
matter of-
Senator O'Connor will be attending. Representative Machino is questionable, and Governor Baker might attend, so we'll
Terrific.
be informed.
You can
That's
push the
great.
button. Who's gonna push the button? to do fireworks?
So,
Maybe the governor.
There you go, the governor.
As long as it's outside of 422.
As long as that's outside of 420 feet, the governor will be safe.
Thank you.
Great.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Rob, don't leave without your citation.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
So next up is change of liquor license manager for Atlantic. And the application process checklist is here. Is there anyone from
Any
Atlantic?
folks from Atlantic in here? Anyone from the Atlantic for the liquor license manager? Okay. Are they in the party?
I saw his car come in.
What's the next item on the agenda?
Yeah, let's just move on.
All right.
Yeah, we can talk about all facilities.
Okay.
So we'll go to the next item on the agenda. All facilities stickers fee schedule amendment.
Tracy says that she may have just. There was a request at the last meeting to take a look at the less than 60-day rental permit. And after talking with the clerk, we recommend moving it back to 50. But they have to get successive ones, that's not transferable. But it's a reasonable number, it's the same price as the others. And the clerk has also recommended reducing we had talked, the original, the once upon a time replacement sticker price was like $1 or $5. That was silly. She decided 25 may be a little high, so we're recommending that go back down to 10. And no one's asked for a replacement yet, we're still selling them, but.
If you have a cracked windshield, you may have to.
Right, and I mean, we don't want to encourage people to be, scraping them off and trying to put them somewhere else, but $10 seems fair, because there is a literal cost to the things, plus we have to, the processing of random ones can be, and also.
Well, what you're describing here is an accommodation on primarily for use of the beach.
Yes.
Okay. But quite literally, I can't imagine we're printing a different sticker, right?
We have to change the records to make sure that you're right, there'll be a new sticker, they'll issue a new sticker. We don't, every sticker is individually numbered and coded, so.
But what I'm saying is it provides access to all facilities.
Oh, yeah, no, I'm sorry, these are all facility stickers.
Yeah.
Yes, yeah, the replacement, the fees in the original schedule that the board adopted, the replacement charge was $25. The clerks rethought that and said it should only be 10. So that's the second recommendation tonight, is to reduce the replacement sticker fee from 25 to 10. It used to be, I said, $1 or $5, so it's going up from that still. And the less than 60 days, which had been set at 100, which I don't think was not really intentional, is being reset to 50. It's non-transferable, but that's, you know, I know that Wayne, who was here last time, had said that seemed reasonable, and it's the fee that everyone else is paying, so it seems fair.
Excuse me, what's the capacity of the lot?
And that's an excellent question. I was just asking that. It's a couple of hundred.
I think she just said 350.
Okay.
350.
Right.
All right, and I do know the Sandy Beach Association has some rights to sell specific parking stickers for that. Do we have any idea of how many that is?
I believe it's up to 200. I don't know that they always sell that many. And they're limited, I believe, just to Hingham residents. That's just their historical, I don't know if it's in their term of deed or it's just the way they've established things. And it's beach only. It's beach only. And they sell those separate, they sell them separate. And that revenue goes to them to support the Sandy Beach.
No, I understand that. It's I was surprised. I mean, I've lived here for 25 years and never once have I encountered a full parking lot at Sandy Beach.
I'd heard that
Right.
this weekend, it was full.
And it's kind of striking, and I think about that and say, okay, well, I understand, first of all, the Sandy Beach Association makes the beach available to the public, I get it. But if we've got 350 spaces in the lot, but are allowing more than half of those to be sold to non-residents, I think there's gotta be some sort of equivocation here. It's not for tonight, but I think we have to think about that. Because if I recognize that not all 200 that might be sold, or whatever the number is, would be in use at any given time. But if there is a substantial demand for those spaces on any given weekend, such that it restricts the application for residents, then you've got cause for friction, and there's no need.
It's definitely worth more of a conversation. Again, it had not ever been an issue, and we'll see. Hopefully, it will not be an issue in the summer. But if it is, that is it's something that really needs to be looked at. I mean, Carol has told me as of today she sold just over 4,000 all facilities permits to town residents.
Is that a record?
No. She often gets close to 5. Remember, a lot of people have 2 cars, so it's not as if they're 4,000
Every single
individuals.
household, right.
Some people buy 2 or 3, so it's it just allows them more
Right.
variability with the vehicles. And again, I think when most people go to the beach, at least in my experience, you put more than one person in the car at a time, typically. But it's we can't make the beach parking bigger. It's pretty much there. So,
Right. Right, it's a finite, that's my point, is that it's a finite resource.
Have there been complaints about the lot being full and citizens not being
This was the
able to-
first weekend in my 3 years here that I've even heard that it was packed. And they had to turn people away, which is not. That was a very nice weekend. I think people were pent up with some of the rain, and it was the end of a holiday weekend,
Right.
A holiday sort of pseudo holiday week. And we'll have to see what happens this weekend, because again, it hadn't happened to my knowledge. It hadn't happened before. It's one of the reasons that the sale to Hingham has never been a particularly big issue.
Mr. Chairman, just one comment on those stickers they sell privately. That accounts for over half of their income to operate the beach from, so it would be a financial consideration.
Yeah,
Discussion comes up.
I recognize that. It's not my question doesn't surround how they raise funds, but rather what kind of capacity actually gets used and whether or not it actually ends up bumping away residents. That's all.
I mean, one of the things we can't do right now, because we don't track them literally, is tell you who, what was the proportion of Cohasset residents to Hingham residents in that lot. If we go to a more electronic system, which is something we'll talk about in the fall, in advance of next year, that might allow us to get data, which we literally don't have right now, which I think would help illuminate that question. So,
Okay, do we have to vote on this new schedule?
yes, there's just 2 changes, reducing the less than 60-day permit from $100 to $50, and reducing the replacement sticker from 25 to 10. That's the
Motion?
recommendation.
Make those recommendations?
I move that we
change the renting for less than 60 days special permit non-transferable fee to $50 and the replacement permit fee to $10.
Is there a second?
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. 5-0, passes. Okay, thanks.
I think your folks are here
We're gonna go back to a change of liquor license for liquor license manager for Atlantica. Is there anyone representing Atlantica here?
Yes.
Please come up and identify yourself.
My name's Joe LaSpada. And
Hi.
I'm applying for the manager of the Atlantica Restaurant.
And you'll be, plans to start date?
I have started.
Yeah, start.
I have started.
And all of the information I understand is intact?
We received the last
Signature.
missing piece was the official corporate vote, which should be in the materials on the OneDrive. And the background check was all valid. Oh, and there was actually one, yeah, there we go, this is good. There was one missing piece in the background check that Mr. Laspada
Yes.
did not have an updated tips certificate, but he's now presenting me with evidence that he has updated his tips training, which is something the board would have required. So, and they, by the way, we let them know that, so this wasn't a game of gotcha. So I'm glad, we appreciate you took care of that.
Thank you.
Before you came tonight.
So I'd ask the police chief, as far as the background check?
I'll defer to the detective. Shepherd.
Okay,
to
great.
do the
Just
background.
go up, identify yourself and.
Good evening, my name is Harrison Schmidt, I'm a detective with the class of the...
And there was a background check required for managers for ABC liquor licenses in the town. And
Yep.
any comments?
We conducted a background check, the only issue was the expired tip certificate, but other than that, there was no derogatory information recovered.
Okay, great.
Thank you.
Thanks, Harrison.
And so all of the information and all of the requirements are here. Can you just give us a little background that you have about yourself?
Sure, well, I've been in the restaurant business all my life. Most recently, I owned Bridgman's Restaurant, held a liquor license for 13 years there, and leased it out a couple of years ago. And after that, I went to work at the top of the hub, where I actually started my career a few years back, and worked for a couple of years. And then I was approached by Jerry that he was interested in me coming to work with him, and he wants me to operate his restaurants the same way I operated mine.
Go ahead. Any questions from the board?
So, Mr. Laspada, you're familiar with that, welcome, by the way.
Thank you.
And you're familiar with our regulations, have you reviewed them? And
I am.
you-
I have.
So, one of the issues we're always concerned about is that if there's a potential violation going on of the liquor regulations or the state regulations that would cost money, say over $6,000, say $6,000, would you be empowered, and are you empowered to go ahead and make whatever corrections are necessary to conform to the liquor regulations, even at an expense, say, of that, without any further conference to anybody else?
I would be. As far as any issues with I'm just not sure I understand exactly.
What we wanna make sure of is that those that hold our liquor licenses are full, as it says in our regulations and the state law, are fully empowered
I am.
to make sure that they can act on quickly and on their own if there's a violation of the license, even if it costs money. And in this example, it's $6,000. Could you, if you were in violation in Atlantica,
I've
could
been
you make?
empowered to run the restaurant.
Excuse me,
To run the restaurant and do what I need to do.
so you would
Yes,
be
I-
empowered to do that without any further?
Mr. Chairman, I'm getting old and deaf. Thank you, Chris. The crowd down the hall needs a beating. Oh, thank you.
No, well,
Huh?
do you have questions?
I do, actually.
We don't let-
Is anyone?
I'll go, but you can go first.
After you.
No, I just wanted to say that, welcome.
Thank you.
Good luck. As you probably know, it's been somewhat of a revolving door of managers over there, so we're all concerned. I think, I'm impressed that you ran a local business, because I think it's really important to understand the clientele that's gonna be coming there. You know, and instead of picking a manager from outside the area, I think that you have, basically having run a restaurant, a successful restaurant in business in Hull, I think, you're already leaps and bounds ahead of where we've started with some of the others, so I wish you all the best.
Thank you, and I just moved to Cohasset also.
Oh, even
Oh,
better.
welcome.
Maybe. That's good, thank you.
A couple of questions. So you've been on site for a week?
It's been about a month.
Okay, so you've been on site for about a month. And if you don't mind, what are the public hours currently?
Currently, we're closed on Monday and Tuesday, and we're open from Wednesday through Saturday from 5 to 9, 10 o'clock on Saturday, and we're open for brunch on Sunday from 10 to 2. That is, we're probably looking to expand that.
Okay. Nothing at the moment.
Okay.
So, can you give us a sense of, you know, where you think what do you wanna do with Atlantica? You know, I'm familiar with Bridgman, so you similar business plan for Atlantica?
I would say very similar business plan, and I think Gerd is also kind of on board with that too. He's really given me free rein to do what I need to do. Menu would probably be a little bit different, you know, similar to what it is now. But I plan on managing it, being there. As you had said, I know a lot of people in the area, and I think it's, we wanna bring it back to where it was. You know, it's really my goal.
Yeah, we get a lot of calls and messages from people that are really upset that they can't use the retail portion of the restaurant, and, you know, we've told Gerd that that's an important part of that facility for the town, and, you know, I think just doing weddings there is something that really hurts the waterfront, and we're all hoping that it's gonna be more than that. And, you know, I enjoyed Bridgman's when you ran it, and I think
Thank you.
if you get close to that, we'll be excited.
And just as a follow-on to that, the license itself is for a restaurant.
Mhm.
It's not for a function.
It's not for a
facility.
banquet.
If that were the case, I think we'd have to re-examine the license.
I've actually expanded where, when I first started, we were only serving kind of in the bar area. I've expanded it into what used to be the old dining area. So I've expanded that, you know, so it's not just seating in the bar. My plan is that the whole place has to be open because we're gonna be so busy. So,
Winter hours?
We
What do you-
support that.
Do you have a plan for the winter?
plan right now is probably try to get everything open and operating.
Mhm.
And you know, I went through this in Hull for years, you know, what are you doing during the winter? I don't see any reason for anything to be any different during the winter than during the summer. I think if you run a good operation, good food, good service, people come all year round.
Yep.
I used to open, you know, on Mondays in January, and people came.
The Salt House actually has a physical structure apart from the pier that's had its troubles. Is the Salt House operating as a unit, or is the plan to keep that shuttered for now?
The plan, and I spoke to Bob Egan today, we've shored it up, and the plan,
Well, again, I'm not talking about the pier, I'm actually talking about the physical
The bar.
structure, the bar, the little,
the plan is to open it.
okay, thank you,
You know, we couldn't 2 weeks ago,
okay.
but we're in the position we're now where we just do starting tomorrow. My plan is to get it open as soon as possible. I would like to have seen it open, obviously, but we've already missed a couple of months.
Right.
You know, so it's, as soon as I physically can get it open, I will.
Okay. Thanks, that's it for me.
That's it. So a couple of things from my point of view. Many moons ago, I worked in the restaurant business, and what I worry about is when the last call is done, when the restaurant's closed, and there's folks in there tidying up, cleaning up, shutting down, breakdown, putting things away. If people are there and employees are there late, then to be certain to let the police know that there are people there late beyond the usual customary closing hours from a safety sake point of view. A lot of times there'll be restaurant waiters or bartenders, they'll have cash, they'll be walking home. The location makes it quite easy for local people to basically be working there and walking home, young kids. So I think that's exceedingly important. And the other thing is, Atlantica is a real local place. I think open year-round, extra hours, I think would be great for this town, because a lot of people in town here go to Atlantica for dinner, and I think if it's a restaurant that's open for, practically every night, I think it will fill, as long as it's, got a nice staff and good food, and the venue, as you know, is spectacular, whether it's winter or whether it's summer. So those are my two concerns.
Do you have any questions of us?
Any questions from us?
More communication is better than less.
Right.
And,
You can call us, we're all in the phone book.
yeah, it's a partnership with us too, and it's, once again, being in Hull, yeah, I was always in communication, with town hall and so forth. Fortunately, we ran it, and I think alluding to what Paul had said, it's a pretty simple thing for me, with the staff and all that. You come into work on time, do a nice job, take your money and go home. My plan is to be the last one there, and that's kind of really simply how I run the operation. It's worked for me over the years.
One of the concerns that we've had, and where there's an opportunity for improvement, is where there's communication from citizens in town. If they ever need to get a hold of, they really should, I think something maybe has already been set up, but I do want to emphasize that, because we've been with this for a while, and one of our observations, and I think everybody's in general agreement, is that if there was quick, good, positive communication between the community, particularly those that live around these establishments like Atlantica, and that they can get a hold of management whenever they have any questions, 70% of the problems, 75% of the problems would be solved. So if you could, I'm sure you've walked into it, whether there's mechanism set up, but if there isn't, if you could make sure there is, that would be uniquely appreciated and helpful to you and to the community, if you're readily accessible, or someone is, through a phone number, so it doesn't need to go to the fire, police, chief, anything like that. We're glad to see you solve your own problems.
And I have started that process already, and
I'm sure you have.
been in communication, and, it might take a little time, but we'll get it fixed.
Trust builds, it takes a while to build trust back again.
Absolutely.
And this office is open to support and help you connect with the neighborhood. And again, we're open too, so if you have any questions, if we can help, we did work with your office to make sure that this got straightened out for tonight. We appreciate you getting that tips thing straightened out, so we want you to succeed too.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, we do. As we've said before, we want all our businesses to succeed. This is a particularly iconic one, so we've said this before. We want you to feel free to come here and talk to us anytime you see a problem that's coming up. We're here we want to help. We want our businesses to be successful. So Chris is available, we're available. Reach out. We want you to be a success.
Thank you. I won't be shy to
Good.
take you up on that.
That's very helpful. Thank you. Any other comments? Chris, any comments? Ask for a motion for transfer of the liquor license manager, Atlantica, doing business as A&S Restaurants, LLC.
So
Is there a
moved.
motion? And a really
Second.
Joseph.
Let's
Laspada?
Laspada or
Laspada.
Either one.
Either.
What would you say?
Tomato,
Calling somebody on the phone.
tomato or tomato.
When I worked in an Italian restaurant, it was Laspada.
Laspada.
I say
Laspada.
Laspada, so,
Spada, got it.
which is fine.
Of Joseph Laspada.
Maybe Joe?
Joe works. Joe works.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Welcome and
Congratulations.
Big
Thank you.
success.
Thank
And
you.
welcome
Good luck.
as a resident of the community. We're delighted to have you.
Thank you. Have a good evening.
Good luck.
Thank you.
You too.
Next up is the THRAC update, the Town Hall renovation
Advisory committee,
advisory committee.
which by the way, it wasn't meant to ever stay that way, it's become the THRAC.
So I'd ask them to come up and.
We actually got
First we'll do.
the cable fixed, by the way, so we actually have
That one, yeah.
we have the ability to project to the town again, which is very exciting.
So this is gonna be a series of updates for both the Board of Selectmen and the town of the new town hall renovation options, plans, feasibility studies, engineering and architectural discussions. So I'd like to turn it over to the THRAC committee. Mary, thank you for coming.
So thank you for having us back. With me is Shane Nolan, who is our project manager for Daedalus. Doug Manley, one of the architects, Wendell Kelso, one of the architects. We've got Fran Collins on the committee and Sam Wakeman behind me. So this is just a bit of an update. The last time we came before you was the end of February. And I have a short PowerPoint, you got it in your packet on Friday, just about what the committee's been doing. Then the architects are gonna update you a little bit on their lift inspection, what their site survey, how they manage that process. And Shane is obviously here to answer any questions too, as well as we get. We're not in the dollars point yet of this, but he'd certainly be able to answer any questions about that. So we have 3 new members since we were with you last time, and they're in blue. Tom Reardon, who was on the advisory committee, Josiah Stevenson, who is on AEC and was on master plan, although he stepped down to work with us, which is great. And Mark Toomey, who's working on the Beechwood Street Meeting House, but we really feel like that's rounded out the group nicely. So we last saw you the end of February. On March 3rd, after we had chosen McGinley Kelso, we had our kickoff meeting with them. We generally reviewed the schedule, talked about the documents that they had access to, the 2 studies. They had researched and found the original drawings from the 1928 trusses, which hadn't been found before, which was extremely helpful. The original drawings, the drawings from the 87 edition. We started our review on the site selection analysis and the environmental analysis, and then the basic program review, which is just space allotment within the building itself. So we started off with a series of stakeholder meetings. In the middle of April, we sat down first with the Cohasset Dramatic Club, because the architects wanted to get a sense of how that space was being used by them and how often it was being used. And then we had a meeting, a general meeting with auditorium users. We sent out emails and invitations to many, many, many committees, and as happens sometimes, we got a thin audience. But it was a good discussion. We had a presence at the town meeting on May 1st. We put together an information sheet about who we were. And on May 9th, we had a Board of Selectmen sponsored meeting, but I think you guys were at 8 different meetings that night. It was a busy night at Town Hall. And that meeting was videotaped, however, though, and that lives in perpetuity on cable news. And it's also on the THRAC page. And that was a great evening. We had a little bit more attendance. I think there were about 15 people there that evening. The architects had brought samples of their other work, and there was a nice dialogue, and we did get some good feedback regarding site opinions for the different areas. So we got together on the 15th and looked at all the data that we had, and Sam brought up the point that we really didn't have enough community feedback, and so we opted to put together a SurveyMonkey, which I think all of you received. Mary Ford was very generous, wrote about it a lot in the paper, urged the community to get involved, went on the various distribution lists, and it was very simple. At that point, we had reduced our site selections to 3 locations. And the architects and Shane can talk about this a little more, but it really came down to a lot of the green space that we were looking at and some of the other locations, the amount of money that it takes to bring the infrastructure in. You've kind of priced yourself out of the ballpark before you even start building your building. So our 3 sites that we had narrowed in on that were on that survey were the existing town hall site, the site adjacent to the Cohasset Library, and up by next to the water tower, the access would have been off of Bancroft Way. And so when the architects speak a little bit, you'll see their site survey, how they graded the different locations there. So the survey closed, and it was pretty unanimous. 71% of the people that responded, and we had over 400 respond, said that they either felt it was very important or extremely important that Town Hall remain where it was. And this married up with the architect's site survey analysis, which was a series of, it's a star system, and you'll see that on their PowerPoint as well. The original Town Hall site won out on theirs. So we made the determination at I think this was the end of June now, we voted as a committee that we would keep Town Hall where it is. Since that point, there's been a lot of work done on the program, or the space allocation in the Town Hall. We had several meetings, one with Chris, with the town clerk to find out exactly what her needs were, with the superintendent of schools to see how they were envisioned using the building, if there were some more space. And then the end of June, we finalized the program and space analysis, which brings us up tonight to this evening. Last evening I was fortunate enough and presented to Rotary, which was a great conversation about where we were. We're here sharing with you tonight. We just had a meeting going through some initial, the first pass at 2 options from the architectural firm. Our plans going forward, we'll be meeting again on August 1st to, based on comments tonight, have another pass at the architectural drawings, and then that will be going out to the cost estimators through Daedalus. So we'll start to get a feel of what we're looking at and what it's going to cost. And then it will be a little bit of a roadshow. We're going to present in front of the different boards and committees, and then come September, when people have kind of reconvened after the summer, we'll hold a few, at least, public hearings to get some community input, really go through the design concept that we have at that point, and then hopefully October 16th, if that is indeed the date for special town meeting, that will be a successful evening. So that's where the committee has been. The architects have a little more detailed information in terms of what they were able to research on their lift inspection and so forth, so you can get a better sense of what shape the buildings are actually in.
Great, thank you. As Mary said, I'm Doug Manley, project architect for McGinley Kelso on the project. So I wanted to kind of update where we are now. So we did have a lift inspection. One of the things that struck us with earlier reports that have been done, or earlier studies, was kind of a lack of overall information of getting close to the building and seeing some of the, at detail, the condition of the building and its suitability for restoration, repair. Something we like to do in all of our projects, so you start to see the building in a little more detail and things that weren't, you can't see from the ground, and assess the conditions. Next slide, please. So you see things like, this is a detail at the crack, a crack at the chimney. Next, please. Just an overall, certainly the asphalt shingle roof has kind of reached the end of its useful life. I'm surprised we're not hearing about more leaks than you do at the building. Next, please. Things like, from up above, you start to see some of the problems with detailing of the building and the way the building's put together. And one of the comments that have come up to us a lot is, why is the siding bowed? We were able to look at it more closely, found that this is actually a nailing problem, and it was applied over a styrofoam insulation, but with nails that were too short, so the siding is pulling off of it.
Sorry, it's not funny.
It's pulling off the building. But I don't want to bring only bad news about this building. There's a lot to like about the building, particularly building this kind of assembly space today in a new building is expensive. The long span trusses and the structure and the character defining features that are there, I think are difficult to recreate and expensive to recreate at this point. Certainly well worthy of restoration in this case. Some of the other positives of the building, it's, you know, things like the vaults, both upstairs and in the basement, conforming with Secretary of State standards for record storage. You know, work has been done with the high-density storage features that are fairly up to date and in good condition. Some of the, even in the 1987 edition that we're in now, it's makes good space in some cases. An office like this with this much natural light, and natural ventilation certainly is a nice office space. The structural analysis was done starting in April and May. One of the things that we determined in looking at the original truss drawings and through more modern analysis with computer programming is that there's a chance to remove one of the main truss members, as you see in the bottom truss. And our thought behind that is an opportunity to widen the corridor in the existing building, second floor, and kind of improve the quality of space on the second floor of the existing town hall, of the historic older town hall. Next, please. One of the other things that was done while we were doing the lift inspection, our historic color analysis of the building. We have a consultant specializing in that. She removes layers of paint, takes them back, looks at them microscopically. This is a layer from the late 1800s. So what she found in this is built up over the years many different layers of paint, and she can more or less date where we were at different time frames as the building evolved. So something that I think will come into play as we talk about what should the final color of the building be. Mary talked about our site options. These in a little bit more detail are the three that were originally considered. The one on the left, the existing town hall site. The middle one being adjacent to the library. The other that she talked about near the water tower. It's kind of heavily wooded, a fairly steep site, and kind of in a residential neighborhood. Next slide, please. As Mary mentioned, the landscape architects and our design team, we developed kind of a rating system to see, to kind of rank the sites. I think what you see here is we quickly dismissed site number 3 near the water tower. So it came down to kind of analyzing 2 sites in the end. And you can see the most of the criteria that we used, the town hall site ended up scoring the highest. And again, we wanted that confirmed by the survey monkey that was sent out to kind of get a little bit more public opinion. This is the opinion of the design professionals and input from the THRAC committee, but we wanted to get the more of a public input. And so the final assessment, looking at staying at the current site of town hall. The programming phase, we met with all of the users of the building, all the departments, conducted interviews. We sent questionnaires to all of the building departments. So we gathered information. That's where we started to look at analyzing what's available now, square footage wise, and what are kind of ideal square footages as we go forward. And we felt that the building, kind of the net square footage is around 7,000 square feet. We found in the end, the net usable program area needs to grow. Maybe like a 15% growth would be ideal for people to operate in town hall. So that's kind of the program going forward.
So the number is gross. The gross number is what?
So
think it's, around 11,000
11,000?
square feet, yes.
Just the core town hall area is not including.
Yeah, not
auditorium.
including the auditorium.
Right, right. We're just talking about functional space.
Functional
Yes,
space.
the town hall, administration space.
And you're comfortable with that number,
We are.
everybody? Yeah?
Yeah, looking through the first set of architectural drawings, it seems to meet the needs of everything. There'll be a little rejiggering after tonight's conversation, but meet the needs of today and hopefully 50 years from today, too.
Yeah.
One of the biggest things is just allocating space better. We don't have enough meeting space, and the town runs on committees, and that's how it's empowered. There's not enough, and there's also not enough space just for regular internal meetings. There's really no conference rooms in this building. And I mean, I'm talking about just for 8 or 10 people, just to have a collaborative meeting, or even 3 people have a collaborative.
No, I think that's a good number.
Okay, but I think one of the things was not just, I think the allocation, there's so much opportunity to make better use of the footprint, or any footprint. So when we went through it, I mean, we actually were able to put everyone in, including people that haven't, that were never considered before, like IT, and, the Public Works Administration, procurement, having HR. There were spaces that never existed before that still fit. Plus, we now have the ability to have little teaming areas, which never existed before. And when the numbers, there were a couple of things we pulled out that we didn't have to have in here. Like, for example, the town nurse. We have a beautiful facility in the senior center. There's no reason to replicate that here. And I was just talking about that the other day. It's a nice space. It has a sink. It's great. There was an original talk about having, the highway superintendent, which is Carl. Well, Public Works, he's a field manager. He belongs with the folks at the field. We don't need to have another space here just for a touchdown space. And it also gives a little bit of a room for flexibility and to when I say to grow, to adjust staff over time a little bit too, which is something this building doesn't really give you the opportunity to do. Again, I know that you haven't gotten that deep. I mean, I just got 15 minutes with them, so.
How much space do we have now?
7,000.
The net program's around 7,000 square feet for the,
Town hall
for
function.
town hall function.
So we would go from 7 to 11, roughly?
No,
For programs, okay, so that,
They're just,
in some ways, it's probably better to almost look at the gross square footage that you have now, for that. I think it's about 20.
Because we're gonna go to 11, right, 11 somehow.
And Chris, you think that'd be enough for flexibility, as you say, there will be positions switching back and forth?
One of the things we looked at is just having, again, I hate to call it teaming space, but, a small workspace, collaborative space. So the inspectors, for example, can lay out a set of plans and all stand around a table and look at them at the same time, which we've been able to do by the reallocation. Or Rec now has its own space. Elder Affairs has their own space, which has allowed other folks to be located there. And we also have meeting space there, so we don't have to replicate every square inch of meeting space. And the auditorium presents a wonderful opportunity, not only for a lot of other community programs, which I'm sure Mary can talk about more too, about the outreach to the arts community and the schools. But if there was a big public meeting, we don't use it now because we can't. You can't do live broadcasts. And a renovated auditorium could be a place, a school committee meeting, a selectmen meeting, a big planning board meeting. Why not? I mean, you don't have to build a big chamber necessarily. But there is a need for space like this to be able to have a planning board meeting or a selectmen's meeting in the building in a way that can be reconfigured. So there's not a fixed dais with fixed seating or anything. That's one of the things that I think they're working to try to include in the space. And again, they showed, so I don't know if you have any of those in your PowerPoint.
we didn't include them in the PowerPoint. And I guess if you look at the kind of how the existing space divides up, if you take and look at the net town hall functions, it's 7,600 square feet. If you take it, the net support areas, it's about 4,300 square feet. The auditorium / theater areas, about 5,500 square feet. The unfinished basement space is 2,300 square feet. The net wall area, columns and shafts, about 2,300 square feet. So you end up with just over 22,000 square feet is your existing gross area of the building.
but that includes the auditorium, that includes the old building too,
Correct.
right?
Exactly.
Okay.
Yep.
That includes everything.
What's comparable to the 11,400 figure roughly? In other words, you've added up to about 22,000 square feet.
Correct.
That includes the town, so the 11,400 for functional space. What is the equivalent of what we have now?
So that if you're looking at if you look at net program square footage,
Right.
It's an increase of about 600 square feet is your net program increase. But there's also a lot of deficiencies in terms of the support spaces. So support spaces, bathrooms, corridor, improving accessibility. So it's going to be a substantively larger square footage increase. So you may be looking at about a 4,000 square foot increase in
total.
building
And
footprint.
6,000 in terms, 600 in terms of programming and so forth.
Okay, I'm gonna talk a little bit about the phases and the process. I understand you've gone through this in 2008 and 2014, so hopefully we can move on through the process a bit further this time. Starting the first tab there, so Deadlifts were hired early in the year, and then McGinney Council came on early in the spring. Right now, as Mary and Doug mentioned, we're going through the design program and the feasibility study. We've done our program. We did some we looked at some conceptual designs tonight, and early August we're hoping to go to the estimators, have something by the 3rd or 4th week of August in terms of costs, both construction and overall project costs, and then do our roadshow through September, leading up to the town meeting in mid-October. That's the tab there, the approval to proceed to design and bid. The strategy is to go to the town meeting looking for just the design fees. So while we'll have an overall project budget, we'll design the project, we'll go through the process, schematic design. We keep evolving the design through what's called design development construction documents. All through that process, we'll continue to do cost estimates. So we'll definitely do design development. We'll probably do one about halfway through the design documents before we go to bid. Make sure we're still tracking on budget, and then we'll do our pre-qualification of bidding, so that at that point we'll have a hard number. 80% of the cost of this is going to be hard construction costs. So by the time we come to you in the spring or early summer town meeting of 18, we'll have those hard construction bid numbers. So that takes out a lot of the risk, because we know this is what the contractors are doing it. So we'll do that spring of 18, early summer of 18. We'll come back with those hard numbers for the full project. If that's approved at the town meeting, we'll move into construction. Just early indications, it's probably going to be maybe a 14 or 18 month construction period, depending on the final design and whether we knock this down or we renovate part of it and what we do. So we'll look at that, and then completion and occupancy. We're targeting, I think, the 250th anniversary.
If it's possible.
If possible. So that's what we're going to target.
There'll be fireworks.
It'll be fast track, but that's the process. We're very early in it. I will say that the committee and McGinney Council have done a ton of work. The survey monkey that Mary mentioned, with 400 respondents, we've done those in times with twice your population and haven't gotten that back. So it's been good, and there's been a lot of folks coming to the track meetings and the other public meetings we've had. So there's been a lot of input from outside of the track building committee too. So that's good. So that's the.
So what are the deliverables for the special town meeting? What is it you're gonna be showing the voters?
So at the fall town meeting, we'll have our a budget, but we're only at.
So you have the design drawings done? We have the design drawings done by, you'll be
No.
asking for design drawing money.
We'll be asking for funding to do this.
So you have some kind of a nickel plan that'll just kind of show what's going on, is that
So
what you're trying to do?
we'll have the feasibility study will be complete. We'll have, we'll have a building design conceptually. We'll have an overall project budget. It'll probably be a range at that point. We'll be able to pin it down, but we'll be able to give the voters an idea of how much the overall cost will be. And if you approve a design
funds, we'll go to design, we'll track those costs throughout that, and come back in the spring with hard numbers to us to go into construction.
Who needs to review this? I mean, how's this gonna work? How are they gonna look at the design? Is capital budget gonna look at it? Is, you know, like advisory gonna look? It's gonna be a warrant article, right?
Yeah, this is the reason we're talking, right? So, there's multiple pieces moving at the same time. One is to get to some design that people are, or conceptual design that people are comfortable with, that fits into a budget zone that's feasible. And then it's, you know, turning, and if everyone's on board, it's saying, okay, here we go. You turn it into, you know, the very detailed, okay, this is what the door frame looks like, and this is what
No, I get it. I'm just concerned, I don't have any concerns. I mean, I just wanna make sure that everybody understands the process, and everyone gets, this is a big meeting, right? I mean, if you come, well, you know, if you design a widget that nobody wants, you're gonna have to go back and do it again, right? So I just wanna make sure that everybody gets enough time to look at this, and we fight this out in August, September, and we're not fighting it out on town meeting floor, you know what I'm saying?
Exactly.
I mean,
So that's
So-
the idea. Sam is, he has a comment.
Yeah, I was going to say, Jack, I have forwarded all these meeting schedules plus additional information to all the members of capital budget. And hopefully, some of them are coming to these regular meetings, which is great, trying to keep them informed and up to date. And I'm hoping we'll have the same group appointed. I guess the Troika hasn't met again. We have several reappointments, but when they meet, if they appoint the same people, we should be okay.
Okay.
And I think the other thing that
We'll still have a meeting with the architects, you know, when we get closer to the final, but my hope is that the committee will be reasonably educated as to how we got to where we are, which will save a lot of time.
So the schedule's tight, right?
Yeah?
But it's tight, but I think it's a workable one. And I think it's, part of the reason for the schedule being important is that we want to basically have a full construction season next year. So that's why the special town meeting next year. And I think another thing to keep in mind is that part of this project, because this site and historic town hall was selected, will qualify for CPA funding. So it's not like it all becomes kind of a general obligation bond, but part of it qualifies for CPA, and it'll be a significant portion of it.
It's just a different pocket, though. It's still our money.
It's still your money, but
Right.
you're also having some of your neighboring towns help pay for that money.
Right, but it's still our money. I mean, it's a
Yeah.
bit like saying, well, if that part's free. It's never free. It's just a question of what pocket it came from.
At least it's
right?
not new money, it's old money.
I don't care what age it is or how much dust it has on it. It's earned by someone.
Absolutely.
Are we getting into the elements of this, Mary, in which we're beginning to look at what the composition of this will look like?
So we had our first meeting tonight with two options for us to look at, and we pretty much hammered through, you know, space by space on the buildings, based on that feedback, and we had a pretty good attendance tonight as well. They'll go back and make some adjustments, and I'm sure they can speak to that better than we are, better than I can.
Let me ask it differently. Will the board have a chance to view that? To see
Absolutely.
that? Okay.
So, one of my next jobs after this week is to be able to give Jen some material to populate that THRAC page on the website. So, so the drawings are up there, so all of our meetings are up there. It's already full, but it needs to be fuller than it is right now. And to your earlier comment, just about making sure the other boards and committees are aware, I'm very prepared to do my homework on this one, so we'll be in front of them.
And as another point, I'm glad to see that Representative Mosquito has joined us. So one of the things we're gonna be doing as well is really hitting up pockets of money that we've never done before. And there's some Mass Cultural Council construction funds for physical spaces. And the old building will certainly qualifies for some of that because it's an art space and there's economic development aspects to it. So we're gonna be sitting down with our senator or representative and with folks from the state offices to really explore a legitimate application for this and see what we can find. Some of that is actually free grant money. I think they even have some other loans, some low interest loans.
That's free grant money.
Yeah, so, and again, every dollar of that is actually, I mean, it's coming out of somebody's pocket. But it's not coming out of our budget.
But it could also go to somebody else's, yeah.
And the town has never really been able to apply for this stuff before, and you know, we have a strong arts community, there's a real strong history in that, and that auditorium has the ability to be really multifunction, obviously for public meetings, things of that sort, but also for theater and for visual arts and the schools, and it really has the opportunity to be a bit of, for our community, an economic engine and a cultural engine.
Just especially while that state rep is in the audience, the executive director of the Mass Cultural Council is a former Cohasset resident and member of the advisory committee. So she's somebody that we should probably reach out to soon, and she oversees, her organization oversees the Cultural Facilities Fund that you're talking about, so it's
Yeah.
just a good connection to
And
have.
again, that's the kind of conversation we want to have some of these meetings over the summer to explore the paths, to make sure that we're on the timelines and that we're exploring every option. And again, there's also the potential, obviously any kind of renovations and even any new or renovated construction needs to be greener, saving energy, and we can obviously try to tap every dollar we can on those kinds of projects. So, and that's also part of the conversation. So the goal is to tap every available dollar that's not a property tax dollar for this project.
I also spoke to Senator O'Connor yesterday in regards to American Disabilities Act money that would be useful for whenever a building meets code for the ADA. There are state monies that are available for that. So that's, some of them are state, some of them are federal, but here's a small amount of money for things like elevators and ramps, which I know we'll have to have a ramp from the outside, which is coming in, I think it's mentioned tonight, as well as elevators, supports structure for American Disabilities Act. To have that adequate.
And with it, you know, again, we'll see how this all progresses. This is not like the library. It's different. People don't tend to give private money to public offices, but the auditorium space and some of the history is a little different. The South Shore, Music Circus originated, has its roots here. So there's other also private funding that might be able to be tapped. I know Mary has talked about this with the committee and exploring some of those options in ways that we would otherwise not be able to do, and that, again, every dollar we can do, which might make the renovation of that auditorium more feasible and more cost effective and make it really nice. So again, this is a collaborative town-wide effort to really make this, it's on the common, but it's open to, it's kind of indoor common, right? It's a public space, and it really should be a really functional public space that's also well maintained going forward, and really something that people can look at in 50 years when people have long forgotten. The folks who did this know that it's a community legacy piece.
So, a long time ago in a place far, far away, we talked about, the old building and this building. I call this the new building. And folks made, intellectually they got all tied up in knots because they wanted to connect the two. And we had talked in the past about how the old building is the old building, and it has a really nice function as an auditorium and an historical building. And, why do we have to connect the two? I mean, why can't we just do the old building as the old building and functionally do a new building or renovate this building and do the new building so that we're not tortured by how to connect the two buildings together? And it seems like a good way to do it. Do you know what I'm saying? Because you're taking the money, all that CPA money, all that federal money, all that government money, all that history, all the historical money, and putting it into the old building the way it should be, and then we're left with 15,000, 11,000 square feet of functional office space that has to be designed for offices. Are we thinking that way? Or are we still thinking about putting them together? Or, I mean, how's that working out?
I think there's some real practical advantages of putting them together. One is that there's a lot of second floor office space. That's very valuable office space. It's about 4,000 square feet of space on the second floor that provides very functional, valuable office space. And you're able to share a lot of things, whether they're bathrooms, elevators. You're able to centralize your HVAC system, you centralize your electrical service, your sprinkler system. And I think, based on what we've done to date, it's really not a torture to keep them together. There's a real savings
of amenities by having the two buildings connected.
So when I say torturous, you know, we have air gaps of 6 to 7 feet between the floors that the folks out there watching don't realize. And then we have stairs that are 7 or 8 feet tall that go from one way to another. And we have closets, when you open them up, it has a direct drop to the floor below, you know, so, you know, that's what I mean when I say things
Only we know about that.
You know, that's what I mean when I say it was a torturous connection between the two, and, you know, I mean, in this day and age, you know, where people want to open space and have it multifunctional, it doesn't work, right? I mean, so I just assume, look, I don't want to be a backseat driver, I'm just assuming that we're going through all these issues and we're going to deal with it, right? That's really what I'm concerned about.
Yeah.
Okay, so just continuing the process a little bit, I'm not sure if you guys are familiar with the public procurement laws for construction. Massachusetts is essentially two options. One is known as Mass General Law 149, the other one is 149A. I think this project is probably a candidate for 149, which is just, it's better known as the design, bid, build. So we'll design it, we'll bid it, and we'll build it. Some of the things we have to do with that, any projects over $10 million, you have to pre-qualify the general contractor and file sub-bidders. Below 10 million is optional. We recommend you pre-qualify on every project, regardless of cost. It means you can weed out any of the perceived bad contractors in there. DCAM certifications required for general bidders above $150,000 will be above $150,000, and that means each general contractor must be certified by the state to do public work. That certification is also required for any filed sub-bidders for work over 25,000. There's 17 categories of that, so we'll probably have probably 15 or 16 filed sub-bidders. They're masonry, miscellaneous metals, waterproofing, ceramic tile, painting, mechanical, electric, plumbing. I missed a couple, but there's a filed sub-bid system in Massachusetts. They're bid a week earlier than the general contractor. The general contractor then takes those prices and decides which ones he wants to use, but he has to use those prices from those trades in his bid. We invite sealed bids from the pre-qualified general and filed subcontractors. The 149 statute says that the low bidder, if he's responsible and eligible, will get the job. So bid day you open the bids, whoever's the lowest will 9 out of 10 times get the job. Bid deposits are required when they submit bids. So if they don't stand over their bid, we can call in the bond. The bonding company will pay the difference between the low bidder drop down and the second bidder. As I said, the contract must be awarded to the lowest responsive and responsible bidder. Once we pre-qualify, it's very hard to determine somebody's not responsive and responsible. We have done it in the past, but it's very difficult, and that's why we pre-qualify, to get rid of those unresponsive and unresponsible bidders. 149 requires 100% performance and payment bond from the general contractors. It's also required from the filed sub bidders too, so bond the project 100%. And then Mass General Law, we have to pay prevailing wage. So prevailing wage is we submit an application to the state. They'll give us the actual minimum wage rates that we have to use. That way there's fair bidding across the board. It's pretty much a union thing. It's union, non-union guys just bidding on the same labor rates. So we have to do that by law in Massachusetts. So that's just a quick overview of the 149 process.
On this project here, we're gonna have what they call the clerk of the works, a central project coordinator.
Yes.
If so, how are we gonna procure, what are your thoughts on how we're gonna get that individual?
You're looking at it.
That's him.
So you'll be the overall
So,
project.
yeah, I won't be myself. I actually live next door in Hingham, so I'm very close anyway, but we'll have, we've got 14 clerks of the work, or what we call them, on-site representatives now. They do a little more than the traditional clerk function. So we'll have somebody here full-time. Most of our guys have 20 to 30 years experience in construction. They're all very experienced, so we'll have somebody.
One of our concerns is we've had a history in a town where we're learning over decades and decades, and we found that it's we really want to make sure that we have identifiable clerk of the works, who's in charge.
You'll be here.
Because we've had bad experiences when we haven't had that. We've had.
Yeah, we have a guy here full-time, whenever the construction is ongoing, he'll be here from first thing in the morning to the end of the day. And there's also other things that we recommend, and there's some other statutes you have to do, so we recommend commissioning. We've done a lot of commissioning where we'll bring in a third party to commission the mechanical, electrical, plumbing systems. So when the project is done, they'll come in and test everything, make sure it's working properly. They'll give you a full commissioning report. We've been doing exterior commissioning, so we'll have somebody come in during construction, make sure that the flashings are done right around the windows, that the roof is done right, that everything's tied in, that it's
That
tight.
the nails are long enough.
Yeah.
So
And you'll be the central coordinator
So
of all
we'll
of that.
coordinate all that. The Mass Building Code requires us to do compaction tests under foundations before they pour the foundation. They require us to test the strength of the concrete, to test the strength of mortar, that sort of stuff. So we'll coordinate all that and make sure that it's done correctly.
So isn't that usually the engineer's function, though? I mean, why would we want a commissioning agent if we're having an engineer on the project?
It's not required, we recommend it.
Yeah.
And on almost all jobs, they do it now. And for instance, the MSBA, the Mass School Building Authority, they actually pay for communities to have it. They'll pay the commissioning agent because they think it's a valuable added function to the construction process. And, you know, the commissioning agent is a third party. He's working directly for the owner. So we have a clerk of works who's, you know, most of our clerks of works are past superintendents for general contractors, so they know the process, but they're not design engineers, or they're not mechanical engineers, electrical engineers. So the commissioning agent, that's what they specialize in. They bring another added advantage to it.
So I always think of the clerk of the work as being the person who handles all the paperwork. I mean, we have nobody in town that knows construction accounting, and we don't do a good job on change orders and you know, invoicing, all that, because we don't normally have people that do construction accounting. So that's the way I think about the clerk of the
Well,
works.
that would be my job, so I've already started that, so.
So we're actually gonna create a ledger that will do, we'll have a general, mods to the general ledger, and we'll be able to do all this?
We do that, I do that on a daily basis. I'll monitor the change orders, I'll check them, I'll review them, I'll bring them to the committee, before we recommend them for approval.
Yeah.
Invoicing, every invoice will come through me, I'll stamp them, send it back to Susan or whoever, the town accountant, before she pays it. So I'll do that, and I'll keep a log of every change order, and then, as I said, that project budget, I'll keep an overall project budget that includes
So
construction.
would we be able to get access to a budget? Could we see it, like an update once a month, and see how we're running on the project and what we're doing budget-wise?
Absolutely,
Okay.
we'll update it once a month with the committee, and you guys will have access.
So who would you essentially be reporting to in those changes? We haven't decided that yet, Chris, or is that gonna be the committee or what? Seems to me that we should have somebody in
Who
town.
does the paperwork? Who does the clerk of, well, yeah, and I assume too, we're gonna have a daily manager. We're gonna have somebody who's managing all the subs
Our
on
clerk
site,
will
right?
do daily reports, so he'll do the manpower, he'll record what each trade was doing on site.
They showed up,
So
right,
he'll do that.
and did their work. and-
Our clerk will track the prevailing wage. Every week, every subcontractor has to submit a certified payroll to make sure they're actually paying those prevailing wages. We'll track all that, and make sure everything's up to date on that. Our clerk does what we call a deficiency report. So the architects will come out, they'll do a field report, the civil engineer will come out, he'll do a daily report, the electrical engineer will come out, do a report, but there's all these reports, so we'll take all of those and keep one ledger or one list to make sure that any deficiencies or anything that comes up is actually taken care of, addressed, and closed out before the work is covered up with that.
I think as the project gets, when it gets its stamp of approval, it's probably something we should discuss. We'll likely have a new finance director in town at that time, and we may discuss at that point whether we wanna reconstitute or reform a building committee that gets reports and gets them,
It's better, just keep it
brings them
lean
up,
and mean, you
whatever
know.
it is
And the only
that
reason
we
I'm
should
asking these
discuss,
questions
yeah.
is because it can affect the budget pretty substantially.
Exactly.
I mean, if you have a project manager, plus you have the architects actually involved in the project and coming to the site, that's more money, and then you have a clerk of the works, and then you have all this other stuff, I mean, it adds up, so, you know, overhead for supervisory work can be 20 to 30%, so, I mean, I think
Didn't know that.
we as selectmen and the capital budget committee and the other committees need to know, I mean, I'm all for this, right? I just wanna know what it's gonna cost and what we can expect as a result of paying extra for these kind of services. And this is something we've all been saying we want, so don't hear it as criticism, cause it's not, but I wanna know what it's gonna cost too.
So, as of now, you've pretty much gone through this building, and the other building. Are there any peculiarities to it that may be an unusual hurdle to refurbishing the building?
There's lots, yeah, yeah. Maybe Wendell can talk, and we did some trial pits for the foundations and.
So, you know, we've done a lot of the hands-on, including, you know, test pits to see what the depth of your historic building foundation is. Depending on that information, it was gonna be either relatively inexpensive or relatively expensive to lower that floor. Turns out it's relatively expensive. So we're kind of avoiding that cost. There's a lot of things that are built very well in your historic building. And this was a much more economical construction here. And part of what we're doing is kind of looking at, you know, what are the elements that are very valuable to save? Certainly foundation, certainly elevator hoistway, elevator, vaults are becoming elements, and we'll see the cost impacts, whether we save the existing structure and kind of do a gut rehab, or whether it's more economical basically to remove it down to the foundation and build up. So, you know, those are some of the things that we're trying to evaluate right now.
Thanks. Steve?
Is there any, in your evaluation, have you looked outside of the existing footprint? Because the two options that you just reviewed briefly with respect to the current structure we're sitting in was a gut rehab or bring it down to the foundation.
There will be an expansion to this addition, yes, in either case, so that we need it to meet the program. So the building footprint will grow larger.
Okay, and likewise, is there an examination beyond that to simply walk away from where this building currently resides on the plot?
You know, we've kind of looked at the overall site, so yes, so we have looked at it. I think what our analysis is that there is some very strong practical advantages to keep the two buildings connected. It's a substantial premium to have them disconnected from each other.
Okay, and then last but not least, the lot as it currently exists is within the defined boundaries, yet there is abutting land that can be available, whether that's by way of taking or negotiation.
Right.
Have we looked at that from the perspective not just of a building reconstruction, but the use of the facility en masse? We're always limited on parking as a small example.
And I think the potential of a small acquisition to increase parking is something we've talked about. I don't think we've gotten any specific information on that at this point.
No, and I asked the question, I recognize it's not part of the original portfolio, but I asked the question simply because if we're entertaining a project of substance, capital substance, I think this is the point at which it needs to be entertained.
So yeah, right now we're moving forward, assuming the existing lot. I think if that changes, if we're adding parking, that's easy to do as that design progresses. But as Doug said, I think right now we're trying to hone in on that building footprint size. So Wendell says we're trying to hone in on that building footprint size. So that will be harder to change and expensive to change later on. But to to increase parking because we were able to acquire some land, that shouldn't be a problem at all.
Well, no, I was thinking about it somewhat differently. You know, right now, you're restricted on how you'll expand the building based upon the footprint of the plot of land on which we sit.
Well, expanding the footprint of the building there still gets us our parking requirements.
And again, I'm not talking about requirements, I'm talking about optimization. I mean, if you look around this common,
Yeah.
right, tonight is a good example.
Hmm.
What do you see?
Cars.
A used car lot, right? Yeah, I see people parked on the sidewalks that, you know, make the roadway barely passable. And I simply look at this, look, town hall it's a physical structure, but it's also the heartbeat of the community. And this is a very small space. Frankly, if I could cleave these two buildings, I would be very happy to do that. Preserve it, God bless it, build functional administrative space that makes sense. And do it with a clean slate, and that's my view. I recognize there's been an awful lot of work going into this to try and to work this out optimally. But if your restriction is based upon the physical space in which you exist, then I would argue that there are opportunities yet to be examined. Not just with respect to the building, but the way that building is going to be used. Okay? One of the biggest attractions of the senior center is the fact that it's accessible. It's accessible. You can roll in, you can walk in, it's wide open space, and you can use it. One of the biggest drawbacks of this structure as it exists is there is, I hesitate to say this with folks who work in it all day long, but it's a bit of a prison. You know, I mean, you think about it, it's a prison, but you have to climb those stairs out there first, so you've got to be in good shape to be in prison. And I simply look at this as an opportunity not to build just a structure, but to build a space that people actually want to go to. So,
Steve, I think if you look at these proposed drawings, when you get a minute, and you can look at them, I think almost everything, every comment you made has been addressed.
no, I appreciate that might be the case. I'm thinking about this from a longer-term view, and it's one of the reasons I asked the question about the lot itself. Have we given that some thought?
Yeah, Steve, you're concerned somewhat about the amount of parking space we have. Is that what I'm hearing?
That's a piece of it, yeah.
Yeah, well, what we're looking at right now with the existing plans with no additional land is probably about 50, somewhere in the neighborhood of 50 parking places, somewhere. I mean, you know, it could be up or down, 5 or 10, but, you know.
Versus
There is
current.
an opportunity to acquire more land. The question is it worth the price the town will have to pay to acquire that? I can't answer that question.
No, and I'm actually reversing it. I'm asking the committee if they've given that some view and.
Excuse me?
I'm asking the committee as to whether or not you have given that some view and have an estimation on what that would cost. Because I simply look at this and say, well, if we're swapping for equivalent parking space, then we're never going to return that common to anything that looks like it merits a historic building.
We should have a net increase in parking spaces when this is done.
A net increase of parking spaces by 10 or 15 doesn't even begin to address the issue.
Now, you're talking about adding 50, 100 more parking places. And
I-
forcing the issue of people to park in here.
Right.
Well, it was, I mean, that was one of the many criteria we looked at, and Doug showed you the different sites that we investigated. There was 15 or 20 criteria, parking was one of them. I don't remember whether the library site scored better than this site for parking. It probably did, there was a lot more space down there for parking. And so consideration was given to that, but then in the overall, in those 20 criteria, this site, you know, was more advantageous than the library site.
Just to kind of wrap up Steve's comments, I mean, it's probably something that this board should discuss. I mean, you know, they've been charged with town hall renovation or addressing the physical building and what the needs are for the people that work here and use the building. You bring up a valid point. real estate is in our jurisdiction, and I think maybe that's something we should discuss on a future agenda, as to whether, you know, we wanna go in that direction. You know, I certainly would welcome that conversation.
Excuse me. Anything else? Okay, any other comments?
I would just love to, whether I go through the call with Chris, have us get on a schedule where we're reporting to you on whether it's at your meetings every other week. The next couple months, there's gonna be an awful lot that's happening, and it's gonna be changing rather quickly. So I just think that should, be something that stays on there.
Sure, absolutely.
We have the time, and if it's the board, if we do it every meeting, we do an update.
Maybe this is, it's at that critical phase. I'd actually propose that the
Let's
board
do it-
consider.
let's do it now.
Yeah, I'd actually,
Every meeting, every
I'd
other?
also propose the board consider taking the adoption of the committee at some point. Keep in mind that at this point, Chris has raised the committee in order to move the project along. I believe that, we're at that phase where the selectmen should take ownership of the project.
How so?
Essentially formalizing exactly what's been brought forward. The reporting structure of the committee now is to the Board of Selectmen as opposed to just the town manager. Okay?
Discussing a charge maybe in our next meeting.
No,
So
it's
that
not for current. I think,
Right.
I'm putting this in front of my colleagues for their consideration.
And that's essentially what happens if they come and see us every meeting.
Right, and if we did every meeting, every other meeting, would that be reasonable?
I think it's.
Did you say
I
every
think it-
meeting or every other meeting?
Or every other?
I think it needs to be as frequent as
They can
do
the
it. I mean,
bylaws
you're-
needs to
Sense,
take
right?
place.
Your next meeting's August first, and so we have a meeting on the 25th, but then our next meeting after that is August 8th, and maybe that's when we start doing
I think that would be
our
great.
meeting.
So August 8th?
How about
And
if,
we can certainly, I'm sorry, John.
no, I'm sorry.
We can certainly get, information and drawings to you prior to that, so you're able to take a look at everything, and we can do short synopsis, just with words too about what's going on.
Sure, August 8th?
I mean, if Chris gives them our meeting schedule, and with the understanding that anytime you wanna come to meet us,
Yeah,
let,
we can fit you in.
let the chair know in advance, and you'll be on any agenda you wanna be on, in addition to the other.
I mean, this is pretty important for the town, so I think this is gonna
Yeah.
trump a lot of the
We wanna support this.
usual things that we do.
When's the warrant close in the fall meeting?
It's next on our agenda.
September?
September 12th.
Okay.
Right,
So
give or take.
basically, we've got till September 12th.
And by the way, that's
It's not a lot of time.
That's not. I mean, you can still hammer out details between then and the
You can
actual
put it on
town
town
meeting, but
you can put it on town meeting
Yeah, I mean, yeah.
as an article.
And you can hammer out the final price in the motions, and that'll be out well enough in advance that it'll digest it. But again, one of the things, again, I appreciate what Sam's been doing. And we've had some advisory folks, I think, come to a couple meetings too.
Yeah, and I actually met Paul Carlson, we had a great breakfast, so it's getting out there.
There's a real effort made to so that people can stay educated in parallel, so it's not a one step at a time.
Well,
That's
but
great.
as you said, the last thing we want is to have people hear about this for the first time on October 16th.
Get that
That would not be a good thing.
That's just not.
That would not be a very good thing.
Not a
It would
good
be a
thing.
very,
We won't
And
let
we
that
wanna hear
happen.
from them before then too.
Absolutely.
And I just want to thank Mary and the entire committee.
Yeah, thank you all.
They've been doing a tremendous amount of work. I don't know if they all realized how much, I mean, they started reading these studies from the very beginning, and it's been a fantastic experience, it really has. And we have a great team as well, professionals. And we brought Daedalus on at the very beginning of the process. So we have a full project management firm to just make sure that we're doing everything the right way, right from the beginning. So I think this is a project that deserves all of that. And I appreciate what you're talking about, what you're raising, Jack, on those points, because I think they're really important for the whole project to make sure it's done the right way. So.
thank you very much.
Thank you very much for your
Great
hard
work.
work.
Thank you, Michael.
You're welcome.
No,
Next meeting.
So next up is dates for the special town meeting and annual town meeting.
I promise to make this quick. So we've talked about October 16th, and I would recommend that you. And again, you have this draft schedule, which I'll release tomorrow. It is rather aggressive, but again, I don't think we have a lot of things for the fall town meeting. We don't want a lot of things on the fall meeting. and this will keep us right on path for that. We're actually, we're closing the books now. Mary's eager to close out her last set of books. And this will put us on track. So October, I'm recommending that you set a date of October. We're clear with the schools too, so I recommend that you set a date of October 16th for the special town.
Great.
I move
Make a
this.
motion.
Yep. I'll move the proposed 2017 special town meeting schedule as presented.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Point of clarification. We are identifying the date on the schedule, not yet calling.
No, you will not call the meeting until, you will open the warrant at the next board meeting.
Got it.
It'll be open for 7 days and then it'll close.
Got it. Okay.
For external, and then internally we'll still, it's gonna have to wrap fairly fast.
Any other comments?
Yes, I'm, is that vote on?
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
No, you don't have to set the date yet, but just April 30th is what we're looking at for annual. A potential second special town meeting just to pick up the town hall project, provided we get there. We won't have to set that date yet. You want to make sure you have enough time to get this thing fully, providing everything clicks along, that it's fully bid. And then the alternative, if for whatever reason things slip, you want to set a different date. So,
What do you think the likelihood of the town hall project and information being ready for April 30th is?
I think there'd be information available, but I've been told, we talked about this from the very beginning with the group, to be honest, and with the project manager. They're like, look, you can press a schedule, you can do a good project. You can't necessarily do both at this stage, because you want to vet it the right way. So I know
they
they
won't
want
even get design drawings done till around January.
Yeah,
and then they're
that's
gonna
gonna
have
go
to
out for
review
the-
them.
Right.
Construction drawings take,
Whatever 60
that's
day
like
bid
all your
process.
engineering, your plumbing, I mean, that takes a long time.
Oh, and the bid process.
And then you have to have, and you want to pre-qualify because we really do want to pre-qualify people and weed out the bad folks or the less than desirable folks as early as possible. So I think they were sweating on they want us to have the special town meeting in September. I said, there's no way we're going to do that. But I think everyone seems to be okay, providing everything clicks along. Okay, and again, this is not a roller coaster. It's a path. We want to make sure everything's vetted, everyone's checked the boxes properly, because that's the only way it's going to succeed. But we're on a target to do that. So April 30th with the potential. You don't have to do that date today. We've cleared that with the schools, and we could do that date. I think this was it the 7th, Tracy?
7th,
is
no.
out because it's AP testing or something.
Yeah, scheduled it.
So April 30th is good. They're holding the date.
And that's a Monday evening?
It's a Monday evening. And it's on the same cycle we've been holding for the last couple of years. And then we'll look at a date no later than June 18th, because that's basically the last day of school. So if we go any later than that, the town starts to empty out. So if we have a special, we'd want to do it. I think no later than that if it's
No
possible.
later than June
18th. So, but we'll come back to those at a future meeting. And I will give you a fresh version of that giant schedule that I sent out. So, thank you.
Okay. Next up is the Revolutionary War and War of 1812 honor roll proposal. I'd ask Glenn Pratt to come up. And talk us about the honor roll proposal, which is the memorial site for the members of the War of 1812 and the Revolutionary War. So there's a historical home in town where I live, and we looked back through, and there was a member in the Revolutionary Continental Army that lived in my house, so this is kind of...
Did you, I have a packet, did everybody get the packet in the mail?
Yeah.
I looked back through him, he was a private in the Continental Army, wasn't even a militia.
Very
It's a
cool.
real deal.
Yeah. Oh, the finest.
He's in Lincoln.
Thank you, Glenn.
Thank you.
So, good evening. So, my name is Glenn Pratt, and I have with me tonight, we've had a Veterans Memorial Committee since 1969. We've been working on different projects over the years. Peter Wood is on the committee, along with David Hassan, Police Chief Robert Jackson, Gold Star brother Tom Keating, and we have been keeping up with different things about Veterans Memorials for almost 50 years. Also here tonight we have Rich Hines and Marcus Pratt from the VFW. We have Phil Pratt from the Sons of the American Legion, and from Legion, Joe Hamilton. So we wanted to tell you a little bit about what we've been thinking about and get the green light to continue on with the ideas on a couple of things, and then just get some permission to do some other things. So we have been thinking about for a long time how we get the two wars that aren't remembered at Veterans Park on honor rolls. That's the Revolution and the War of 1812. So we've come up with a scheme where we build a low wall, very similar, exact same design as the circular wall, which is currently at Veterans Park for Korea, Vietnam, Gulf War, and the War on Terror. So if you can see from this photo, we put another wall over on top of the seawall. It's low, it's 18 to 20 inches high, the same as the grade on the lawn of the existing circular memorial. The two wars, surprisingly enough, 325 Cohasset men went to those wars. I expect they were volunteers, and 16 of them were killed. So we would like to get that built, so that completes all of the American wars that would be represented there, honor rolls of all the Cohasset citizens who served. And as part of that project, we're going to have to pull apart the, if you go back one slide, Tracy. We're going to have to pull apart that Vietnam section of the existing memorial because we have more names to put on there and we have no space left on any of the tablets. So we have talked about how can we jury rig it and what can we do to get them somewhere, and then we came to the realization, what, let's do it right. Let's just pull the thing apart, add more tablets, and put the names on a proper format. So next slide, please. So that would be the two construction things we're thinking about and proposing to tonight to get your opinion and possibly, hopefully, the green light to continue on with the idea. So we also wanted to tell you some of the other things that we've been puzzling over and like to fix. 1995, town meeting voted to name the end of Parker Avenue Edmund Marie Landing. So you can see the Edmund Marie memorial sign is standing there with a wreath on it. But over the years, as we've upgraded the parking, changed around, and rebuilt the dock, put up a big sign that says Mariners Landing, the memorial to Eddie Marie has kind of gotten lost, or has gotten lost. So we would like to just move his memorial sign over to the other side of the parking lot where the flagpole is. Simple project, it's all town land, it's a nice open space. We think it will look terrific over there, and it's not going to be overpowered by that busy boat ramp.
Glenn, why not just land in the landing after all?
Well, that we explored also with the people who put up the sign that said Mariners Landing. And trust me, Steve, when I tell you it's going to be easy to move the sign. So,
Who named it Mariners Landing?
well,
Must have been the selectmen
it's
because we were
because we
the
don't
only
get
ones
into
with
names,
authority.
but
Yeah, okay.
there was committees. But the town meeting voted to name that parcel of land Edmund Marie Square. So, and
The land adjacent to the head of the dock.
Yeah, because all that construction, all that dock wasn't like that 20 years ago. And the fact of the matter is that things that we do to remember fallen American heroes, it shouldn't be a controversy. We shouldn't argue. We shouldn't take sides. Let's find a way to fix it. And we think this is the way to clean that one up. So then we take a look at the Gold Star Mothers Memorial, which was built in 2001. The idea was that we would have, between the hardscapes, the hard surfaces of the bluestone and the monument stones, we would have a soft, grassy area that would kind of blend in nicely. But as you can see, it's almost impossible to take care of, and a lot of effort doesn't go into taking care of it. So what we want to do, if you go to the next slide, please, is put more bluestone there, like the walkways that we have now. you know, it's a hardscape, but the color scheme is there. It makes the whole place a somber, you know, place of remembrance. Because the soft idea of grass just is not working out after 16 years. If you can go.
Excuse me, can I
so-
just ask a
yeah.
quick question on that? Do people
Can
tend
you
to
go back?
walk,
Yeah.
would you anticipate that being sort of a walkway to visit?
Well, people do.
Yeah.
But if you go back to the other slide.
The grass?
Previous, it's just not, that situation is just wrong on a number of schools.
Right, I mean,
So-
could you consider, you know, putting down like real rolled grass and putting some kind of a irrigation system in? so
There is
that's-
irrigation, that was sod, and it was irrigation.
Okay.
It's not maintained, and it won't be maintained, so we're
Right,
thinking,
fair enough.
if we go to a hard surface, it's probably the best. So if we jump up a couple of slides, Peter Kohler Square. Peter Kohler Square, probably 10 years or so ago, we got a landscape design done, and all of those ornamental plants, trees and shrubs were put in there. Irrigation was put in there so that they didn't die, and it's doing its job for sure. But we can't, it doesn't seem to be able to be maintained. So we've looked that over with Carl Sestito and Brian Joyce, and we think we're gonna pull back a lot of those big bushes, just come to more grass in there, and just a smaller little area around the memorial sign with some, we'll keep those beach roses probably.
And where is this?
That's at the intersection of Doane and Church Street in Beechwood.
Yeah.
So, that'll look a lot better. We've talked to the family, they're okay with reducing the amount of plantings and going back to more grass. And then would be more likely to have the family or the neighborhood put annual plantings and stuff. In many of these squares, the neighbors or some neighborhood group takes care of it. And, you know, they just do it quietly, and some of them you see around town are just gorgeous, like David Parker Square at the intersection of King Street and Beechwood Street. Craig Simeone at Lantern Lane and Pond Street, the neighbors take care of these things. As you probably know, the Roy family takes care of the Veterans Park through their landscape service. We have the developers of the Toll Brothers project, they've had their landscapers taking care of William Laidlaw Square. So we get a lot of great community support, and we think backing this thing off will help with that. So we'll go on that. The other, Dennis Reardon. Dennis Reardon is down by the police station, right in the fork of the road of Elm and Highland. It's a steep slope. We can't seem to find the right kind of landscaping or even grass that can be maintained. And so we've been scratching our head over that one for some time. We had an overblown idea a few years ago, met with some resistance, so we, like I said, we can't have controversy on Veterans Square, so we did nothing. So we're always looking at this one, we're always trying to figure out what to do here, because this is probably the least appealing of the 22 squares. Well, once we fix up the other two we just talked about, this will still be unappealing. So
How many squares do we have in town?
There are 22 servicemen who were killed in the wars in the 20th century.
So we have 22 designated parks in town.
Squares and parks, right.
And and
Well, some of them are roads. There are 3 roads. You have William Long out here, you have Jason Long, and then you have Howard Gleason down at the York Road.
And
some of them are simple things like the horse trough, which is planted out at the intersection of Atlantic and Beach. There's another horse trough type watering hole up at North Main and Jerusalem, in Daly Park. So they're all over, and some of them are just plain signs on the sidewalk, like down in front of the Historical Society's building, right in the center of town, George Meeting.
so is there like like we have a library committee, we have a committee for the graveyard, is there a committee for all?
Yeah, our
this?
committee has been working on this since 1969, and
Okay.
there was a narrative that may have come in your packet, I think it's with you there now. Of all the things we've done in the last nearly 50 years, and we have always been troubled by keeping them up, making sure they look good, and so we have neighborhood groups who work on it. We've been talking with the VFW about whether, some sort of a contribution might go into a certain park that would be there and keep up. So we also are very, very vigilant about real estate people putting signs on them, or, you know, farmer's market, or, you know, whatever. So, because we just think it's respectful and that's what we do. So, we don't have, you know, a formal arrangement or how we might use the money from the VFW to take care of some of these. What we're talking about, we want to have we want to get something in place that lasts and works. Many of them it does. There are a few that don't. We're going to fix that. So the last question we put in there is, how much should the taxpayers commit to maintaining these squares? Should there be a line item in somebody's budget that just says, you know, Memorial Squares? You know, there's one for celebrations, and we have different things. Other than just being buried up in the park department's mowing the account, something like that. So that's a question.
Has there ever been thought about doing some kind of an endowment for these things, kind of like the library trust has and others? So there's a pool of money that's dedicated just to this forever, and it spins off income, and people can donate to it, because that would, the danger with budgets is that, you know, money comes and money goes, and the first thing that's always cut is, you know, maintenance.
Well, I think that's what this question is,
Right.
getting that kind of discussion going, you know.
Glenn, is the Veterans Memorial Committee is self-raised, right?
Yeah, it was originally appointed in 1969 to build the original piece of the Veterans Park, and then, you know, that mission was done, but the group just kept on, and we kept working on projects and ideas, and we bring them in, because most all of them turned out to be on town land, you know. And over the 50 years, all of these things have been talked about. We've built all through, you know, private donations. CPC has helped when they could.
Just wondering, is it whether or not a portion of this discussion is to essentially endow the committee under the town structure? From that perspective, formalize from the board's viewpoint the necessity of recognizing the veterans by way of memorials and the like. At that point, you can start to have a fairly fulsome discussion as to how we might work with both endowments and, to the extent possible, putting together reserve funds.
So like a Veterans Memorial Committee?
It exists currently, but it is
But
self-directed. There's no
Town.
relationship. There's no formal relationship with the town.
So
The town acknowledges it, right? And we acknowledge the
So
work
you're
that
saying
they
we
do.
could potentially set up a Veterans Memorial Committee under the town auspices?
Yeah, it's a thought.
Or we could help with the fundraising, you know, we could say, okay, the town will do matching, you know, I mean, there's a whole bunch of what, we probably need to say, okay, we're interested, let's figure out how to
Really
do this
discuss it,
later on.
because I can see some limitations in terms of.
Well, I can tell you one. There
Spending.
I'll tell you one. There was no interest from our groups at all being a town committee. It's restrictive. It's cumbersome. You know,
Really, you don't
boards of
say.
selectmen.
Do public,
That's
yeah.
what I've heard. Boards of selectmen come and go. We have been able to perpetuate for 50 years, like lots of organizations in town, you know, and get important things done. We'd like to continue that way, but we like to always say, how can you help? You know, what can you help with? So tonight's things are, can we go ahead with these things? Do you have questions?
So there's two specific things on town, or three, I guess, right, that would like us to weigh in on. One is the
Yeah,
Gold
so-
Star Mothers, the other's the Edward Marie Landing, and then the Veterans Memorial update.
Yeah, the big thing is the developing, moving ahead with the Revolutionary War wall. The Edward Murray Landing thing is simple, very simple. It's
Yep.
nothing that'll be done in hours. The changing around of Peter Goga Square was already agreed upon with the park department, and we're just gonna cut that back and get that done. And, you know, that one's pretty simple too. The hardscape that goes to Mothers, we need to go ahead on that too. Cause that's if you can see from the pictures, very.
And that doesn't involve the cemetery committee at all, which I know you're also a part of, but that is a town committee.
Well, yeah, well, the cemetery committee is another curious group too. I think that you are the commissioners, so it's a veterans memorial, which is why we bring it up, because we watch those kind of things. It's in the cemetery, which other commissioners are, so I think everybody who's interested in this is here in the room right now. So I just as soon see if we can go with a nod on that too.
So, I'm open to this, but, you know, I'd like to hear Chris take a shot at this and weigh in, and maybe at the next selectmen's meeting, we can, you know, take 5 minutes and Chris can summarize all this for us and just get it done. Can we do that? I mean, I would, for example, here's one of my concerns. One of my concerns is, we're gonna do the harbor plan, right? And we wanna get full access. Access is gonna be a really big part of that. So how are we gonna integrate the memorial that's on the harbor with everything else that's going on? And for example, who owns the harbor wall? I don't even know who owns that harbor wall. Is that ours, or does that belong to Gert Ordo, Heidi, or, you know, I mean, I don't know.
Doesn't belong to, the part we're talking about does not belong to the hotel, for sure.
Yeah.
This is town land.
Yeah.
Every, with the exception of one, Memorial Square, it's all town property. One is on Peter Albiani Square on Gammon's Road and Jerusalem Road, and we have a perpetual use easement from the landowner who owns that.
The, yeah, I mean, you know, I wanna find a way to address all of these, but the one in Veterans Memorial, what's currently there now?
It's a low concrete, you know, seawall type structure. It's about 4 inches off the ground, maybe.
This is very good little graphic design work, because I looked, I was like, oh yeah, that's there,
That's what it
what are
looks
they
like,
doing
yeah.
differently?
Right, yeah, we'll put the names on.
Yeah.
So where's that's the major project that's being talked about, which, has that gone beyond the picture of a design? Is there
because
cost estimates? Is there
No, it isn't. So we start off by, first of all, seeing if the veterans groups are interested. So that's why we showed that around when most of the veterans were out on Memorial Day. Then our next stop and our first stop is here, saying, can we get the green light to move ahead with the idea?
To move ahead with the idea again. One thing I would like to see is something that important, and I'm not sure how it'd be done, is the vetting where interested public groups have a chance to comment on it. So the American Legion should probably take a look at this, and whether there'd be some kind of a meeting either here or somewhere, just so that we could get the major change. This is a significant change and it looks good, but before a small group did it, even though it's a dedicated group to it, I think it's good to have public input to the extent that we can work that up. You can have that, because the more public endorsement you have of it, obviously, the better. And also, some people may have some real feelings and ideas that, you know, you're not thinking of, as you know, in a town like
Right.
this. So I'd like to see that, and what our role here would be what, because this is a prior type thing, we would
Yeah,
approve
what are
this
we being
project.
asked to do here?
And we'd have
Being
to.
asked to allow us
Work
to
on
go
town
ahead with the
property.
project, because it's
Right.
town land.
But at some point that you'd kind of come through with more specific proposal for us to look at, I guess.
We've always, once we start off with the veterans groups.
Right.
And we're all, then we go to the public. We try to, I can't jump ahead of things. So we've always done that on the different things that we've done.
Good.
And many of the things that we've done have had town meeting vote, because we felt the town meeting vote makes them more permanent, and it's there, and that's why.
I think that's a good way to do this.
Yeah. So we would do that.
That would comfort my thing, yeah. So what you'd get is it'd be a town meeting endorsement of what you're doing, the concept, and then you'd have the designs there and so forth.
Yeah, well, I don't know if it would be some sort of a resolution. So
Resolution.
There's no money, so it wouldn't be an article.
I'm sorry,
but
go ahead.
No, I just, look, we're heading towards our 250th anniversary, and to not recognize folks that marched off to create a country would be foolish. To not recognize those that fought the first defense of that new country in 1812 would be foolish. To a draw nonetheless, with a relatively scratchy navy, suspect navy. I'm broadly in favor of it. I agree with Kevin that I think, you know, I would feel comfortable with a bit more input. But generally, I think that makes a great deal of sense. Number two, with respect to the hardscape at the Gold Star Mothers Memorial, again, I recognize the reason for it. Every time I walk back there on Memorial Day, it just strikes me as such a solemn place and a reflective place. And I agree with you that no one is going to get back there to cut it on a weekly basis. And it really should be. It's a shame that it becomes overgrown that way. And even if we had an unlimited budget, I guarantee you that they would still get overgrown by July and August and it would become a bear to deal with. The Marie Landing is, I'm still kind of struck by that because to me it's called the Marie Landing, and that is to me the entire complex. And I'd like to find out for my own purposes a little bit more about that background. And that's one of those very, as Jack had pointed out, it's one of the few public spots of access on the harbor, and as a result, it's one that we should think long and hard about how we recognize that one person who was so dedicated in that area. You know, if it's the landing, are we talking about it? Are we parsing it out? Is it just that plot of green? Does it include the ramp? Are we talking about the entire complex? Because if that's the case, let's deal with it. That's the one, of all the places, that's the one that probably is most likely to be maintained.
It's the most glaring, but like I said earlier,
No,
controversies are.
I'm not trying to bring controversy in, and I'd like to get a little background on it, that's all. But having said that, I agree that if we can get some additional input such that we can act on it for next meeting.
What additional input would you be looking for?
Well, look, I mean, I have issues, I'm fully supportive of what you're trying to do, but I'm not gonna run headlong into this personally, okay? You know, you're asking to build on a seawall that's on the harbor, and we don't have construction drawings, we don't have design drawings, we don't have a plan. I'm not gonna approve that, Glenn. I wanna see a plan for that. I'm with Steve on the landing. I mean, if that landing, it was supposed to be the Marie Landing, let's look into why it's not the Marie Landing and get an answer for it, because I don't know why not. The other stuff I think is, you know, pretty cut and dry, and there's no reason why I think we couldn't get that done. But I mean, you know, there's a lot of stuff going on that waterfront. We got 250, we got the master plan, we got a whole bunch of things going on there. I'd like to do a little bit of due diligence before we say, okay, go ahead, let's go.
What do you need, Jack? What do you need?
Well, I mean, I'd like to go, I personally would like to go down and walk it. You know, I mean, it's a harbor structure, so building that wall, I think people need to know what that construction's gonna look like and how it's gonna alter the wall. I mean, you know, so I just think, what you've got here is great. Let's start the conversation on that wall, and let's start the conversation on Marie, and let's just push it. We'll push it and get it done. But, you know, I need to know more. I mean, there are a lot of plans for 250. 250 wants to do a lot of work down there. How are we gonna coordinate with 250? Right? Aren't they asking for structures on that location with that
I have
waterfront?
no idea, I haven't heard a thing.
What's 250? What are you talking about?
250th anniversary.
There's no plans to change any structures in that area.
I think there is.
So if I can parse these out, I think the Coco Square is a piece of, I think that's done.
That's done.
Right.
We don't need any board action.
Right.
The Gold Star Mothers, if you're okay with it as a board of cemetery commissioners, you should just vote to approve it.
Yes.
Probably should maybe wait one meeting so it's formally on the agenda, and then you got your green light to go ahead and do it. I don't think that's a problem. And that could be teed up for the next meeting pretty easily. And that gets two of these things in well, one's already motion, the other one is fairly easy to do, and I don't know whether we can install, but that can be.
Yeah, I really want, if we can, Jack, I gotta go back to Eddie Murray Landing. We don't have an appetite to start the kind of fight that's gonna happen, trying to get that changed. We've been through it for a couple of years now. We've gone over and over and over with all the players who are involved in it. There's no appetite to do it. You know, we don't need to turn the whole voting community, and we can't have controversy on Veterans Memorial. So I think if we just quietly move the sign, the family's okay with it, I think we just move the sign.
That's literally all you're asking for with that
sign.
one, is just to move the sign over to near the post and the sign over to near the flagpole. And we can still look into it, and certainly as the harbor committee looks at a bigger
will.
picture design
They will.
of the
Well, of
harbor.
course, if you're gonna
It's actually probably a better thing to move that over anyway. At some
Yeah.
point, that dock's gonna have to be rebuilt. and all
Isn't that what they
so-
tied the
I'm
trash
in
in?
favor of that.
Yeah.
Alright, so again, I don't, you need, I don't know if you need to vote on that. Is that all that land kinda considered? So if you're all okay, then
Just move it.
then just move the sign.
No, we wouldn't.
I think it's 3 of the 4. Now, the other one, it does have a
Excuse me,
lot
just
more.
to be safe here, do they need a vote?
You know what,
Probably.
why don't you,
Yeah.
so
So-
why don't you just call for a vote on the.
Yeah, so-
All right, I make a
So I'd ask
motion
for a
to-
motion to allow the move of Edward Murray Landing Memorial to the said position.
I second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
But, I mean, that is Marie Landing, right? The whole thing is Marie Landing, right?
Well,
If
you
I went
look-
back and
look-
read
look
the,
and see what it looks
if I
like
went
here,
back
you
to
know?
town meeting and read the declaration or the warrant, it would
Yes,
say
it
that was,
says the
okay.
end of paragraph.
All right, so let us take a look and see what's going on.
In the meantime, we'll move the sign.
Okay.
Yep.
That's great.
And then the last one is, again, it is more complicated, and we can continue the conversations and
Yep.
see where we can go on that.
Yeah, I mean, we can't get any of that data until you say to us, okay, get the data.
Yeah, yeah.
You know, I mean, if I'm going around trying to get all this,
So just
all
give
this
us a couple- give
engineering
us a
and all this
couple of
stuff
weeks.
done, and then you hear about it and say, what are you doing? That's
We're
why
good.
step
Give us a
one.
couple of weeks to take a look at this and we'll get back to you, okay?
I don't know what you're gonna look at, I'll get
Well,
back.
I mean, you got the
Yeah, you
James
wanna-
Brook
you
Dam
just
there,
wanted to
you got the
take a look.
seawall, you got a lot of structural stuff going on in that neighborhood. Let's let Brian Joyce take a look at it and say, what do you think, Brian? Has Brian taken a look at this
He's
stuff?
already seen it.
And what'd he say?
Should be okay.
Okay.
But we don't have engineering, because we haven't had the go-ahead to
Yeah,
get to
yeah,
that stage.
we're not gonna
you know.
stall, we're not gonna stall. Let us just do what we gotta do for a couple of weeks
So
here.
when would you like me to meet you there?
Next meeting,
We do
right?
the next meeting, the 25th?
Well, the 20,
You're talking about having the board meeting down there?
No.
I was just gonna give you a.
No, I'll go down.
I wanna
We'll
go
go down
too.
together, I don't care.
the next meeting is tentatively scheduled for your second round of goals and objectives, with one other item, meeting piece, which is amending the budget, because a joint meeting with the advisory committee, get that done.
Transfers.
Yes, so those two are gonna take up the vast majority of your time, unless you wanna add this as well. This goes to the 8th, I don't know that it's gonna delay
No,
anything.
we don't, I don't think we need that quick. I mean, getting the green light to go ahead and hearing you say, give us the stuff, which we can now get for you because we have a green light to continue on the idea. So it doesn't have to be.
Yeah, so I would say.
Would the
when
other,
they have
would
a-
the fellow selectmen like to
doesn't have
walk that site?
Yeah, I definitely just wanna visualize it, cause I can't remember what's there,
Yeah.
just for comfort level, and I also think given, I mean, we've had calls from people in town saying that the whole wall, you know,
Needs to be-
because of what happened at, the old salt house, you know,
Needs to be redone.
how's so I just want a comfort level in terms of the engineering of the general wall around the harbor, that is, some of which is town land and town responsibility.
It is slight, but there is a visibility concern there too. I don't know how high that is, but, you know, a view of the harbor is something that, you know, people in town are very sensitive about, so we wanna make sure we see how high that is, and is it blocking any of the harbor view, because that's iconic for our town. Even, but, you know, on the other hand, this is very
Yeah,
important.
and I think
too.
everybody
I just
should-
say it just be looked at, that's all I thought about.
Let's take us down, let's go through the site, let's just.
If you
do
could
due
send out
diligence.
a memo when this meeting is, so
Yeah, what
whoever's
Just a site
what
visit.
kind of a time do you think is good?
I'm around for the next couple, you guys around for the next couple of weeks?
Yeah, early mornings.
Yeah, early morning,
Some days,
All I gotta do is work.
yeah, we all.
get up early.
Well, then I guess the other option is the Gold Star Mothers Memorial.
5:30 is not early.
Gold Star, do we need to?
I think it is.
We're okay with that,
Yeah,
aren't we?
it's- well, we're the
Do we need to make a
commissioners.
motion?
Well, the only, I mean, it's up to you. I mean, if you think this has been raised sufficiently for public comment, then you're good, then you can just vote to. So, I don't, you're only doing Bluestone, you're not adding anything radically to it,
Yeah.
so.
Taking out the grass.
I'm okay taking a vote on it, I think it's probably a good idea.
Yep.
So I asked for
Make
a
a
motion
motion.
for the placement of proposed hardscape at the Gold Star Mothers Memorial.
as,
So moved.
as indicated by the
Pictorial
depictions.
representation we saw.
As discussed. All in favor?
Aye.
Or is there a
Aye.
second, rather?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
So I'll circulate some dates for a morning walkthrough.
Do you wanna have Tracy handle it all, or do you wanna just do it independently?
Sure.
Or do you wanna go
Give
one
them
by
to
one, or-
Tracy, that'll just be
I mean,
easier
they
for
can only go
her.
2 by 2, it becomes a public meeting, but you know.
But if it's a site visit,
they're all quiet.
if it's a site visit and we're not delivering
Right,
them,
yeah, you
yeah.
can go others, that's true. So if you wanna work with Tracy,
Okay,
Glenn and
indeed.
Tracy set up times.
So when you
Yeah,
say early in the
excuse me, but
morning,
it
what are
may be-
you talking about, 8,
It
7:30?
may
Yeah,
be
eight.
if we do the meeting,
7:30.
do it as a public meeting, and then
6:50.
I wouldn't mind if
Do it.
we were there, anybody in the public was interested, and that gives you another way that you said I'm open to the public, so I'd say come on to a date somehow,
Sure.
and then publish it as a meeting and put it up there,
Do it, and then
and
we-
public's invited to look at that with us. Is that okay?
Yeah.
Just a chair?
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you to the Veterans
Thanks for
Memorial
everybody.
Committee, 50 years, you know, what can you say, that kind of dedication.
50 more.
Yeah, thank you very much, look forward to the next 50.
Yeah.
Okay, next up is appointments, reappointments, boards and committees. Conservation Committee, appointment, associate of full member appointment for Christopher McFarland. Any discussion?
Are you bringing them up, or we're just
Sure.
doing it?
Come on up.
Good evening. Jay
Okay.
McFarland with the Conservation Commission.
Chris McFarland.
As you
Having deja vu all over again.
Due to a recent resignation on the Concom, we're down to 6 current voting members now, so we are in the need to fill a voting position. Chris has been an associate member for a year now, has done a great job, and I would recommend support Chris being voted on to a full-time voting member position.
Jay, what does that mean for openings now on the commission?
So that would fulfill the 7 voting positions, and we have 2 associate positions. The board just brought on 1 individual,
Yep.
fresh off the streets, to serve a 1-year term. So currently, we have 1 associate position vacancy.
Got it, okay, thank you.
Do you have applications for that, just that are?
We
or is that
do
something
not.
you-
I was gonna follow up to see how you wanted to take the next steps, if you wanted to do a posting, or what
I
that
think
would
so,
be.
yeah.
Yeah,
There's-
actually,
there's a whole
posting,
bunch of-
invite people to apply.
Yeah, there's
Yeah.
a lot of people that are involved now in the last couple of years that want to be on committees of various sorts. And I think we
There was that
post it.
gentleman who was really good.
Yep,
Remember?
yeah, and I actually reached out to him.
Good.
But we also are still filling some committees that I don't think we're gonna be done, and the Troika
Right.
has some committee appointments to make, and I think there's probably, you know, I don't know, maybe 5 or 6 people that have applications in that will not end up on a committee. So we should put it out there and then maybe wait and see till everything else is populated, and then see if other people are interested in
Sure.
some of these openings that we don't have filled. But, yes, all right.
Just a little bit about yourself. Introduce yourself to the committee.
Has it changed in the last 2 weeks?
It is-
Yeah.
No,
You're still a
I'm still
landscape
Chris
architect.
McFarland.
Still a landscape-
Are you a
still a
landscape
landscape-
architect? I still live at 50 Reservoir Road.
Bada bing.
Right.
Still excited about being on it.
Yeah.
Good.
Yep.
All right.
I move.
So I ask for a motion to approve from an associate to a permanent member of the Conservation Commission, Christopher McFarland.
It's a 3-year term?
For a 3-year term.
So moved.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Congratulations.
Great,
Thank
thanks,
you.
thanks for hanging in there tonight.
Actually, it's an unexpired
It's
term for 1 year.
Oh,
Yeah, till 2008.
It's an expired term for 1 year.
so I amend the motion
So there's an
to
amendment on the floor.
appoint Chris McFarland for a 1-year, to fulfill the 1-year term,
Unexpired time.
unexpired term.
Second for the amendment?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
It's amended.
One question I did have was, do the associates need to be, I was told they needed to be re-sworn in.
Yes.
Yes.
They do need,
Yep.
okay. And I was also told that we're waiting on those letters to occur, and I only bring that up because we have a meeting this Thursday night. Currently, that puts us in a position where we only have a quorum of 5 individuals. If the 2 newly appointed members can't take a vote, we're held to 5 as of this meeting. So if those two members could get sworn in by the meeting Thursday night would
Oh,
be
do
a
they have to go
benefit.
down to
So go down to the clerk's office
Then you'll let it
anytime
from
after
us,
8:30,
though, right?
They
Yeah,
can,
right?
the clerk has been processing these.
Okay.
What normally happens is they're done, they're mailed out, you bring them back, you sign them, you're done.
so what you're saying is you need Chris and Eric, your full-time voting members, to be sworn in. I think they can just go
Correct.
there and.
Yeah, I mean,
Well-
the clerk has all the materials downstairs.
Okay.
She has the letters from the selectmen?
She issues them.
No, she issues
Oh.
them, they come up here, they get signed, they go back downstairs. I just actually signed a bunch today, but they weren't you, because you were just appointed tonight, so.
Right.
The clerk's also, the last 2 weeks, has been just besieged with, all facility stickers, that's where their focus has been. There's not a lot of committee meetings in the summertime, you're in a little different situation. You can just contact, again, Tracy will talk to Carol tomorrow, see if you can accelerate this, but we'll just double check.
Can't they vote as long as they're sworn in? We voted them in and they're
Yeah,
sworn.
but not until they actually, they
Yeah,
have
the
to,
paper, okay.
they have
This
to
is a legal
legally sign it.
This is
That's fine.
more than just advisory.
Yep.
Thank you.
Great.
Thank you
Thank
very
you.
much. Thank you
Good
for
luck.
serving.
Okay. Next up are the Harbor Committee interviews and appointments, inclusive of Tim Davis, Tom Norton, and Mike Malinowski. Come on up and introduce yourself. Sorry for the delay.
Must be 8:20.
It must be 8:20. Something killing it.
Yeah, somewhere.
Right, it's
Yeah.
mountain
In
time or
Chicago.
something, right? Yeah, Chicago.
So that's just individually introduce yourself and then.
Michael Malinowski, apologize for the hat and the baseball, but I just left the baseball game with our Legion team for Cohasset and Situate, and I live at 171 South Main Street.
Tim Davis, 257 Atlantic Avenue, Cohasset.
Okay.
And Tom Norton, 41 Red Fox Lane.
Great.
Okay. Start off, Mike, questions from the board?
Maybe if each of them could express why they're
That's what they
interested in
want
the
to do,
committee.
yeah.
Yeah, this is new, sorry.
Anything you wanna say to us as far as?
So, a little background and see why you want to be on the board.
Sure, I mean, I think you've got some qualified candidates that you've narrowed this down to. I think this process has been going on for a few months to get your committee moving forward. And I think it's a tough decision for you guys to figure out who you want to appoint to this board, and I think we'd all serve well. From my perspective is, and I think I put into my application, is what I offer is my experience in municipal management and understanding all the different harbor regulations and municipal laws that plays into this process. Also, my planning background is being a certified planner, and because we are looking at a master plan and looking at the study of the harbor, so I have that to add to the mix as well. I think I've also demonstrated in my experience here with the town of Cohasset, where we have the governance committee and many other committees that I've been involved on, that in order for this project to go forward well and to meet the objectives that you guys are all looking for, it needs to be an inclusive and transparent process. And I think that having someone like myself and that has those abilities to help move this committee forward so we can actually accomplish some stuff and actually meet the objectives the selectmen have and protect that resource we have. I mean, I think the harbor is what makes the town special. I think we all agree that that's the case. And again, I'm here to offer my services for that if that's what the board's looking for. I certainly have a lot on my plate, but again, I thought that this was a good opportunity to continue to serve the town.
Thanks, Michael.
Thank you for considering this. I've been participating in the harbor for the last 40 years or so as a recreational sailor and boater. Yesterday, actually, I had the opportunity to serve on one of the commercial lobster boats. I went out for a day, and I can tell you, not only is the lobster fleet, the fishing fleet, one of the great resources and assets we have in this town, but those guys do a hell of a lot of work. That is hard work, and anything we can do to help them and to build the infrastructure for the commercial fleet in Cohasset, I certainly want to be a part of. There's a lot that can be done. It's a huge resource, a huge asset to the town that I think has been underutilized for many, many years, and I think there's a lot we can do. So I would be
humbled and grateful to serve on this committee, if you so choose to have me.
Thanks, Tim.
Thanks, Tim.
Thank you, Tim.
And Tom?
Yeah, thank you. Interestingly, I'm coming from kind of a different approach from these gentlemen because I've never actually served in any function in town government. I've never been on a committee, and I've always wanted to. And basically where I'm at now in my life, I run small businesses, including a local small business in town. And I tried to stay as involved as I could with my kids, but now they're in school, and I've looked to the town to try to find something that I could hopefully contribute in. I've lived in town 16 years, been voting most of those 16 years. Like they've said, I treasure the harbor. I feel it's probably, if not our biggest, one of our biggest resources, and I want to try to contribute to that. And I feel that, you know, I don't have a lot of maritime experience besides being a boater. I have a boat on Parker Ave and then a whaler. And I spend a lot of time going to different harbors recreationally. And there's a lot of things I like about our harbor, but I think there's a lot of things that we could definitely improve on. And coming from my background with a small business, I think I can contribute, but to be candid, I've never done this process. I'm just trying to come in here and be as candid as I can. I think I can help it. I think that having both the recreational background and the small business background, I can give a perspective that maybe is a little different than this type of committee would be used to. And I'd be honored to be part of the choice.
Thanks, Tom.
Thank you.
Any questions from the committee?
No, I mean, I think we said last time we had, Jack and I interviewed maybe 12 or 13 original applicants. It was really difficult to get it down to 6 because everybody had such an enthusiasm to not only serve the town but to really serve the harbor, which was why we created this committee. So just in advance, thank you all so much. You made it through a really critical round because the competition was fierce.
I just have a question for each of you. Same question. What's the greatest opportunity that you see with the harbor? And at the moment, what's the greatest shortcoming?
Well, I mean,
same question to each of you.
Steve, there are many. I mean, if to boil it down to 2, one is the shortcoming is the revenue we get from the harbor is de minimis compared to what it could be. Okay. I mean, we can get tremendous revenue, I believe, from the harbor. A number of ways to do it, and I won't go into them. But and I think, you know, in today's environment, we're looking for new sources of revenue, and that's one we can do right there. If you just look at some of the other harbors on the South Shore and the Cape, I mean, we are really far behind.
Okay.
Yeah, and again, coming from a small business background, I think I would look at it from a process-driven standpoint. You know, what is our process in the harbor right now? And I don't think, and I'm not blaming anybody, because again, I'm a member of this town and I haven't volunteered to help until this point, so I'm just as culpable as anybody. But what is our goal? What is our mission? What are we trying to do in the harbor? So I don't know if you could pin it down to one shortcoming. I think in order to answer that type of question, I think you'd have to complete the harbor study. And before you even complete the harbor study, you'd have to bring in somebody to help you who's been through this process with many different harbors and say, okay, what is the town trying to do with this harbor? What's our goal? How are we going to get there? And then after that process, we could identify, you know, directly answer your question. But I think right now, without having a clear plan, and maybe we do, maybe I'm just not aware of it, but, you know, are there monthly, quarterly, and yearly meetings in terms of what is our plan and how are we getting there? What is our progress? What are we doing to get there? And I think that would be my answer to your question, Steve, would be, in order to answer that, in order to identify your biggest opportunity, we have to look at it overall and say, what is our goal as a town? So,
okay.
Hopefully that answers your question.
Mike?
I'm going to piggyback on that as well, is that, you know, this is the greatest asset that the residents of Cohasset have. And that's really where we need to focus on, so that it's a harbor for residents to use. And I think we've lost that a little bit, that we haven't been focused on that. We don't have a clear direction. We don't have the leadership as to what that goal is. Obviously, this process is going to help build that out, but right now we don't have one. And when you look at other harbors, they're self-sufficient. They do bring in the revenue to provide the funding to do the dredging on their own, to build seawalls, to deal with market conditions. There's been a huge resistance of raising the rates and dealing with market rates to manage the harbor for decades. And that's where we need to open up the process, open up the system, compare to other communities, and figure out what it is we need to fund, because we do have limited resources. You're gonna build a new town hall, you're gonna be building other things, where the users would be more than happy to pay for this, because they should. Because that's where I think we need to focus from a revenue standpoint in building that up. But we also have to do it in a way that's going to protect the ambiance that we have right now. I'm not trying to say grow the harbor, I'm not saying that, I'm just saying we need to re-figure out how we manage and how we provide leadership for the direction to benefit the town with the proper revenue coming in so that the harbor is financially sustainable, and it's not now. We've got seawalls collapsing. Who's gonna pay for those?
Thank you. I'll ask each of you the same question they asked me when I ran for school committee. Will you have the time for the committee?
You know, by the fact that I think we're all up here, we're willing to make the time. I mean, I, as you know, I have a job managing the town of Carver. I also have another private sector position that I'm doing right now, and I coach baseball and I do other things. But the bottom line is, I think all of us believe in what we're doing. That's why we're here. And by the fact that we're here, we're willing to make that commitment.
Yeah, I spend part of every day on the harbor, so I'm willing to make whatever commitment is necessary.
Yes, as I mentioned, my kids are in school now. In fact, the irony is, as I was sitting here listening to me, I got an email for the tuition on one of them, so that's a great email.
Mine
That's
too.
that time.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Same
right.
tonight, yeah.
That's great.
I don't know if
Really
it's the
good
same,
with
I
that,
doubt
aren't
it's the
they?
same school, but.
Yeah, no. But to answer your question, I definitely feel like I would have the time, and it's interesting being in here tonight and being here as long as I was listening to him. I learned so much in a couple hours, and I never knew we had 22 parks and for
Veterans parks,
veterans
yeah.
and all of these things. So yeah, I definitely will make the time.
Great. Thank you all.
Any other questions?
No.
Okay. Well, thank you all for coming down and late
Thank
in
you
the
all.
hour.
Thanks
Appreciate
very
your time
much.
and effort,
Thank you.
everybody. Commitment to the town.
Yes, thank you very much.
So, Mr. Chairman, we're gonna vote on this, is that what?
So I'd like to vote on this tonight. There are 6 candidates. I'd like to see if we can, this is embedded with town council. These are ballots for the 6. They'll be tallied and.
By Mr. Senior?
However you wanna do it.
Yep, by Mr. I think it's Mr.
Arthur Anderson?
Yeah, Arthur Anderson, counting from Arthur Anderson. You need to sign these.
Yeah, I'll ask you to
There's a
sign the
signature.
bottom and
So they're a
also
form of public vote.
Yeah, make it so it's legible with a printed name below it.
Not secret,
Not secret.
semi-secret. So. Yeah, you can only vote for each person once. You can't throw all your votes to one person.
Yeah, one vote per person.
So if it comes out that one person gets 62 votes, you've noticed something.
Notice somebody's stuffing the ballot.
I already done the math, there can actually be a multiple way tie depending if you all get split.
Have you really? Who's the tiebreaker?
No, you have to revote.
It's one of those
I don't
math
get- I don't get, I
problems
never
where-
get a vote, I just.
So so we release blue smoke from the,
White smoke.
from the,
smoke.
oh, white smoke.
It's the white
Right,
smoke.
right,
Blue
right.
smoke. It's either gray or white.
And if you're not selected, we have openings on many other
There's a bunch
committees
of other
in
places.
town that need your participation. Do we have every selectman's?
You do, I have, as long as there's 5 of you, I have 7 ballots. Come on.
While you're going through the tally, do you wanna do the last one?
Yeah, let's keep going.
Yeah.
Ware River?
So Weir River?
My dog is, thanks you.
My dog's got his legs crossed.
So next up was Weir River Estuary Park Committee. And there's one gentleman, Thomas Bell, who wished to be appointed to that committee. And it basically, I believe it's a regional one, it includes Hull, Hingham, and us.
Yeah.
And does each town select one representative? I
I
don't
believe
remember
there's
how
more
this
than that.
works.
I know there's one that's from here that's appointed, but I believe there are other people on the committee, but it's a regional committee, one of the few regional committees that we have.
Mr. Bell here?
Is the gentleman
I
person
don't
here?
think so. Dick Avery recruited him to join, so I'm just doing a.
Does Dick
quality
run that?
control.
Dick runs that group?
He's one of them, yeah.
Okay.
So
just.
I'd ask for a motion for appointment to the Ware River Estuary Park Committee.
For Thomas Bell.
For Thomas Bell.
So, second.
Is there a second? All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. No no's. Okay, that's good.
Okay.
After or before?
After we finish.
Okay, I have tallied the votes, and I can, and again, they're all attached, so you can see who voted for who they want to. Tim Davis has been appointed with 4 votes. Georgia McGoldrick has been appointed with 4 votes, and Tom Norton has been appointed with 3 votes. So those are the 3 members that have been selected by the Board of Selectmen.
Congratulations.
Congratulations.
And by the way, no one else on the list is ever off. No one gets to escape. So everyone is absolutely free to participate in, and absolutely we're going to be calling on people to serve in committees.
Definitely.
Yeah, that's the thing. I mean, it's an open process, and everybody can be involved and should be involved. So.
Okay.
Great, thank you, congratulations.
Next one will be Lobsterman appointments for the Harbor Committee. So we have, anyone here from the Lobstermen's Association?
No.
Or- no? Okay. So we have John Barrett. And we have
Matt Maher.
Matt Maher.
And these were recommended by the association?
Yes.
They were.
Nominated, I should say, by the
Yes.
association, okay.
So.
Any discussion?
So I'll move Matt Maher and, hold on one second, I'm sorry.
John Barrett.
As the representatives of the lobster/fisher fleet.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay. So I
All
think
right.
now we have a full Harbor Committee.
Yes,
Rec Commission appointed.
yes, I think rec appointed, so yes.
Yeah, okay.
Could we have Tracy schedule the first meeting for the Harbor
Yeah.
Committee? Because they need to vote for a chairman
chairman.
and.
All right, so we'll try to set
secretary.
something up in the next couple of
Yeah.
weeks, maybe down at the Lightkeepers or something.
Sure.
That'd be
That'd be
an
great.
appropriate spot.
Do you think that it makes sense to start off with you chairing the meeting, just to get it,
What I've done with all the new ones, I've just moderated the beginning and then
let them
there's
add
generally,
it?
the model that's worked so far is to try to have a presentation from someone who's done this somewhere else or an organization to explain how this might work. And I'll talk to folks about it.
There's a guy from
Is-
Hull who did the Hull plan,
Fabulous.
who's available.
And then the board then will select its officers and set up a schedule. So that's generally how we do it. So we'll try to set something up.
I'll work with
Yeah,
you to do that.
Okay, great. We'll do something later in the month, probably, on a date that's not conflicting with anything else, which is getting harder and harder to find.
So you want to find a break?
There's one other appointment that you could call if you, it's not absolutely urgent, and it's a ministerial appointment. The planning board is switching one of its representatives to the master plan committee. They sent us notice of this, and it's not formally on the agenda tonight. So either, we did just get notice of it on Friday, so it's within the 48 hours, I believe. And I believe the next master plan meeting is before we meet
Our
again.
meeting.
So it's Amy Glassmeyer.
Glassmeyer,
Right.
yeah.
It's been named, it's Clark staying, and Amy's gonna be the new second representative. That's the recommendation of the plan. That's their vote.
Still. A result for that?
Yeah. So I move that we appoint Amy Glassmeyer as the planning board rep to the master plan committee.
Is there a second? All in favor?
Aye.
Good. So that's a full committee as well.
Yes.
Yes, it is.
Okay, you wanna-
Yeah, just on the master plan committee, are they at a point where it would make sense for them to come and give us an update on what's going on? or
Yes.
Where it's,
So they're actually at a pivot point now. They're actually talking about bringing out a consultant and where that's going. So yes, and we'll set something up in probably affordable housing too, probably in early September.
great, perfect, thanks.
Did you want to quick break?
Yeah, if we could take like a 2
I'd
minute
ask for a
break.
5-minute recess for a break.
It's a mellow 85 degrees in here. So.
Beautiful. Summer. Next up is a discussion of the OPED committee. This came up a couple of times before, and the OPED study committee, which was set up originally to look at the other post-employment benefit items for the town, most of that was healthcare for retirees. They did a lot of work with adjusting and helping save costs for the town and for retired employees for healthcare costs. I thought the other option, which is out there, is just general retirement and pension funds, which are out there for current employees and retirees. And so this is a proposed charge from the Board of Selectmen. I want folks to review this, take a look at it. When we come back again for the next meeting, think about what you think the OPED committee options, as discussed here, might include or not. So I'd like to kind of have you review it. The original OPED was just for retirement healthcare.
Right, and OPEB technically is just non-pension, but Todd was charging the committee. We can distribute this to you electronically, so you're just taking a look at this tonight. There's really no action to take at this point. It's just to think about it for the 25th.
And it falls in within our goals and
Oh, yeah.
objectives, which
Goals,
actually.
something you raised,
Yes.
and your goals and objectives. So
We're
this
analyzing
would-
strategies for funding OPEB.
So, did you wrote this?
Actually, one of your colleagues drafted this, and then it was, I just put a couple tweaks to take it from, I put a couple tweaks in, but I give Diane all credit, and Paul, for the initial draft.
Well, and I took the initial draft from the old OPEB and then tweaked it and made it current, and then Chris worked on it. So I think it's in relatively good shape, but we can discuss any edits.
So we'll add this to
the next-
OneDrive tomorrow, because I didn't have the e-copy distributed to you, so.
Okay.
Okay.
So I think
Good.
it's an important discussion, and think about options and how we're gonna fit with these down the road. Next up is the finance director, town accounting review of the job description and hiring process.
So all of you received a draft job description. And if anyone has any comments or suggestions or tweets, feel free to give them, submit them, send them to me, and we will tweak. Now, again, I want you to understand, the job description is not what we advertise with. This is just the core responsibilities, and it's not meant to be exactly like 36.2%. It's just kind of a.
Yeah, I mean, my general feedback was, it was very structured, and there wasn't any talk about leadership and what that means, and.
Yeah, so that it's hard to nuance that into a functional job description.
Yeah.
The ad is different, so I will circulate to you. I asked Lisa to come up with a kind of a more catchy ad. We'll put it on our website, and she incorporated the hardware. I think it's kind of fun. Diane saw it because she walked in one day, and I'm going to circulate to all of you just for thoughts. The most important piece, though, is targeting the audience. So the committee, the initial screening committee, you've already heard from Lisa. It's Lisa, Mary, John, Tuffy, and Jim Powers has also said if he can, he'll be part of it as a screening. He can't recommend anybody, but he can give questions and ask questions and help vet folks.
And help them focus.
Correct. In addition, Jim and I spoke, and he and Lisa have spoken at length about targeting candidates, and he's already identified folks that he thinks would be really prime candidates from people he knows. And I won't go any further than that, other than we had some good conversations. Plus, Mary has been letting everyone on the planet know in her association that she's retiring. So once we're good, we'll with the description again, and I'd love any more input. I'd like to put something up on the 2 or 3 different websites, and then we can circulate very targeted. It won't be this, by the way. It'll be a much more punchy ad with links to the town. Again, this is not the job. The job is going to. I want people to go to the town website and read the CAFRs and read the budgets and read the budget documents, and the good candidates will be doing that. And the website's now structured so people can learn just about anything they need to know about our finances on the website.
The piece of written communication that we received as a job description.
Right.
My comment, my only comment on it is similar to what you heard from Jack. There's little attention paid to the discussion of this person being a strategic thinker, right? And I think that's absolutely critical to the role. You've talked about whether or not it's a conjoined role, town accountant, finance director, or whether it's segregated into two separate entities. That, from my perspective, the finance director has got to be someone who can operate at a strategic level. Who, frankly, when you ask them for cash flow, doesn't argue with you whether or not it's necessary, but rather wants to understand why what information are you looking to find out from the cash flow analysis, right? And recognize that question is coming from a place where the person asking it is looking for a greater level of understanding, and their role at that point is really one of leadership, helping them to get to that point of understanding. And that's the piece that's the component of the job description that I don't believe gets a strong enough representation.
I'm happy, I totally get what you're saying, by the way, it's almost so integral that I don't.
That's
right,
really what
and-
I was trying to say. I didn't say it as well as my fellow
Um,
colleague here.
I
But you were
think,
much quicker at it.
I think
No.
I can weave I think what we can do is, I'll weave a bullet point or two, and if anyone has any thoughts, I'm happy to take them, into, and again, I think, almost, it's not even in the job responsibility, it's in the foundational aspect, like right up top. Maybe ramp that up and talk about strategic leadership and financial leadership and,
And the story is, we've really come a long way, and we want to take it to the next level, and we're looking for, kind of a young gun who really wants to make a mark and do some interesting things, right?
Can't say young gun.
we're looking for
Right,
an
can't.
energized
Yeah.
professional.
Thank you.
Sorry.
With strategic leadership
yeah,
abilities or whatever.
Listen, if we could find someone with the characteristics of John Tuffy, I would think that we were really, really fortunate. If we could ever lure John, what was John's last name?
Oh, yeah.
Stanbrook?
John Stanbrook. If we could ever lure him back here, I would love it.
No, he's
He's in Mansfield.
Yeah, I think he just got
firmly
promotion.
entrenched.
Yeah, no.
Yes, he's like
He,
assistant
besides, he probably once he put Cohasset in his rearview
Yeah,
mirror.
he ain't coming back.
He still has nightmares.
So-
Jack, can I just say too, independent of Jack's and Steve's comment, I had come to the same conclusion, which I was doing my own thinking. But Steve described it, I agree, pretty much exactly what I was thinking. So I want to sort of emphasize that because I think it's important. And I think there should be more than just a tweak or a paragraph. There should be an inherent piece of meat in here that we're clearly looking for a broad, strategic thinking person. And I would like to even go so far as to say we should ask for experience in that area to make sure we get it. Because I think I've seen in institutions, and I'm sure my other colleagues have too apparently, a finance strategic thinker is invaluable to what they can contribute to any organization, the vigor, the growth, the potentials. And so I would like to see someone who has actual strategic experience so I want to reinforce that. So that's coming at least from us three strongly from the board.
Ditto.
Okay,
I thought the
look,
same
by the way,
thing. You got it.
I'm with you too, so.
Right.
just don't-
And it's all part of that thing we've been discussing, which is, concentrating your scope of command so you've got 5 or 6 people you really count on who are capable of being leaders and, doing what you ask them to do and do it well, And so these are really critical hires for you too. I mean, I see these people really helping you do your job.
No, I agree, and this person helps all of us actually do
Yeah.
our job.
Yep.
And we've been fortunate that Mary has vast experience, and she knows stuff, right?
No, I agree. And that's not a knock. I'm not.
No, I'm not. So
Yeah.
I'm not knocking either. But we're in a different world too. So we're looking for someone who can confront the next generation of challenges too, who brings that kind of vitality and energy and really wants to. And again, municipal government is different. It's a different beast than the private sector. I don't want somebody who's who's kind of radical. I don't want to be Orange County and like invest in like junk bonds and stuff. But,
City Hall.
But,
Well, that's the treasurer's job
Yeah,
anyway.
it's the treasurer's job anyway, right, so,
They didn't invest in them, they issued them.
I mean, boy, hopefully we will never have here, so,
We need a couple.
Yeah, I thought the same thing, and under staff and program management, where it says recommend, develop, and implement, I thought strategically recommend, develop, and implement goals, policies, and procedures to best manage the town funds. I thought that would go first, put it right up front.
So what I'll do is I'll add another section to this, but I'll also send you what would be a tighter, punchier ad. And the goal is to, and again, I'll show you this other ad, which I think is kind of fun, we'll put up on the website anyway. It actually says this view needs you, and this picture of the harbor, and talks about Cohasset being a dynamic community with great professionals, really taking career to the next level. The whole point is it's not just, 3 to 5 years, da-da-da. I mean, we want things, the list of things that we want, but it's an environment. We want people that are ready to jump in a collaborative, energized environment where they're working with a lot of very successful people on committees and boards that are gonna challenge in a good way us to get to the next level financially. And I think that's something exciting that we offer. And so there we go. So I will bounce that around. You'll see something in the next day or two, and then we'll start posting and see what we get. There's already some strategic people who will get this ad directly based on conversation with Jim, and Lisa's already doing some of that as well.
Right,
John.
and by emphasizing that in the ad, you'll attract those people, as opposed to someone looking at it and saying, well, really what they want is an accountant. No, that's not me, because my next move in my career is to follow up on the strategic abilities I'm already showing. Because I plan to be, much bigger someday.
But we need it, but let's be clear, we need an accountant too. I mean, this person has to be able to do both. It's just the nature of the beast. And they should, by the way, in order to be a good strategic.
You have to know how to do the nuts and bolts.
Exactly. And there are nuts and bolts to do. And again, that department can evolve over time too. We'll have to see how that works. One of the key things that we work on new financial software. So I'll get you that. We'll talk more. The nice core committee, and I think we're on a good path. So great.
Good work,
Thanks.
thanks.
Next, town manager annual evaluation process. So we have to start that, and I think in the next several meetings, we'll probably end up having one of them to be town manager evaluation. So I think last year, I thought it went relatively well. I think Diana and I were on the subcommittee that went through each individual recommendations and comments and criticisms and pluses. We developed kind of a one item packet that came out and gave an overall view of the assessment. I'd like to see if we can do something like that again this year, if that's all right with you as far as.
No, I think it's about. I mean, this is about goal setting and objective setting and all that too. I mean, obviously I get feedback from every single meeting and every time I sit down with you. So this is a strategic. This is a strategic, right? But again, if you're sticking with the form,
I'm not sure though.
No. But it is. It's. I mean, what is the line? You're only the old newscast. You're only as good as the last newscast, right, or the last at bat. Unless you hit a home run to win the World Series, right? That's part of the job. So, but this is an important. We don't get a lot of time to sit. So one of the nice things about this is all of you get to write down things that are particularly important from your perspectives, and we talk one-on-one, and then the committee combines them, collaborates them, and they go into the file. And then we talk about it publicly. That is the most awkward part of the job, by the way.
Of course. Getting
compliments is very nice, or even corrections. But doing it in public is something that it definitely takes getting used to.
We don't like it either.
But it's fine. It's part of the job. So if you're starting it, then.
Well, so let me just review what we have done the past 3 years, and I think we even did it a little bit modified before you. But every one of us will get the blank evaluation form, which I think has already been sent to us by Lisa. If we agree that that's what we want to go, we can resend it out. We each individually fill out that form. There's kind of a narrative at the end that we should each individually do. And usually then they get collected here in the office. Tracy keeps them in an envelope. And it is helpful if you can find time to sit with Chris and actually kind of one-on-one go through it with him, because some of the questions of evaluation will necessarily lead into some new goals and objectives or things that we want to be on the same page about are important to work on. So then
So let me just make
Yep.
sure I got this. So fill out the valuation, submit it to Chris.
submit it to the office, don't
the
submit it
office.
to
That's
Chris.
gonna be-
But-
Does
but-
Chris get to review it
Oh, yeah.
before we
Yeah.
meet?
Yeah, and then
right?
we sit, yeah,
Yeah.
they'll look at it, and then we'll
Yeah.
sit down and go over it, yeah,
Yep.
that's how it works.
So that he knows, and then a subcommittee, whoever it is, will literally just go through kind of the quantitative analyses and summarize, you know, if, we'll take the scores, if there's 5 5s, you know, or a 3 and a 4 and a 5, we literally average the number, and then we take the salient little points and put it together, and then we cut, that's the one thing that gets presented in public. And then we each, the narrative, we bring to the meeting where we do the review, and just, you know, we've been reading them, cause it's just easier to do it that way.
You read them on TV?
Yep.
You
So
read
we
'em
all
di-
sit down and read them?
You read them on TV, and then you give them to Tracy when you're done,
You-
that becomes
you-
part of the package.
You're reading the combined summary, not, you know,
So,
which, right?
Chris has been an active member of the playpen community
Yes.
this year. He plays
Right.
well with others.
yes, so
That's
basically,
really
we
what it
read,
is, right?
we go through the, what is really the quantitative stuff that has some qualitative notes,
Yeah.
and then we each, right, we each read our narrative, which is the summation of all of our individual comments, and the public document is the combined piece and the 5 individual evaluations. But all the individual reports go into your personnel file.
And what you do is just, Jack, so you just, when you do up the form, that's when you sit with Chris to go over it with him before you submit it, just so that he's aware of it, and,
There are no surprises.
You did.
yeah, so that you don't submit it before he's had a chance to.
That's right, I
Right.
opted
Talk to
out.
him.
So is everybody okay with that?
Yeah, for purposes of expedition, all I wanna know is when do we need the written evaluation back?
I think we should set a date right
Yes,
now,
but
end of the
that's-
month.
Yeah.
And then you can do this on the 8th, the goal would be to do this publicly on the 8th.
Fine.
of
We're gonna have a
August.
busy meeting.
So it's,
Okay.
Tracy, would you just send us all a note that says, you know,
What do we say
eval
about the end
due?
of this month?
End of July 31, I think.
Yeah.
30 days, 31.
Okay, you might as well reattach the,
Yes.
so we all are speaking on the same page,
Yep.
we are anyways, but
Yep.
reattach the evaluation form that's due by the end of the month, which means we need to sit with Chris before the end of the month to go over what you did, just so you
Pretty
know.
much, yep.
All right, so then the other option is who's on the committee,
Subcommittee.
subcommittee, sorry.
Go for it.
Yeah, you
You
guys
want me to
are-
do it
You guys
again?
can have it, yeah.
Wanna do it with me?
I
Yeah,
got it
you
down
guys-
to science.
Is that right?
Yep.
2 of us?
Do I have
Okay.
to work with you?
Again, yeah, sorry, bite the bullet. All right, so the 2 of us will get a subcommittee
Yep.
assessment of the 5. We'll sieve out the salient features, put in a final copy, and then we'll distribute that. Good, okay? All right, good. Selectmen update.
I'm fine.
Okay, Diane?
I got a couple quick things.
Sure.
One is, on Facebook, and then I've had a lot of calls about the town parking lot, so this is just a kind of a public, piece of information out there. People have to be really careful driving around. I've, in the past couple of days, have seen people going in and out of the town parking lot the wrong way, people on their phones, people, I was at the stop sign trying to take a right onto Depot Court coming out of the parking lot, and somebody made such a narrow turn, they almost head on to me, and I was in the right lane, cause they were trying to cut in. So just a reminder to be very careful, there's so many kids out there on their bikes and skateboards and everything, and that area in town, I think it's worth us revisiting at some time in the future. That's what literally got me
Do you mean
involved in
right here?
town.
Oh, you mean the main
I'm
parking lot?
talking
Yeah,
the
Depot Court.
the
the,
Depot Court,
Parking lot.
Ripley,
parking.
Pleasant.
The,
Parking
the,
way.
the police department now has its summer bicycle crew out, so I
Yeah.
can ask Bill to just make sure they do some extra sweeps, which they're starting to do.
Funny, you said town parking lot, I was thinking you were
Yeah.
talking about Norfolk.
I'm talking about, yeah, so that's just and the other thing, I just wanted to mention that I went yesterday to the memorial service for Joyce Steele, who was also known as Jeff Steele, who has lived in Cohasset, I believe, for, I think they said over 60 years. She just passed away a few weeks ago. She was on the board at Sandy Beach Association, Social Service League, pretty much everything in town. She really was beyond special. So I just wanted to acknowledge her passing. She will be missed. She was quite a force. So, thank you.
Okay.
Jerusalem Road repave.
In the next couple of weeks, I believe.
Okay.
Could you publish something on Facebook and on
Yeah, I'm just getting a lot of people are asking me.
In
On
fact,
the
I have up the, striping is also gonna be done in the next couple of weeks, which I was threatening to go do myself with a paintbrush. And then the repairs to the crosswalks downtown are also being scheduled in the next couple of weeks.
So those extra stripes,
Are they?
Yes.
the extra stripes downtown are gonna be
Yes.
removed?
Yeah, so they're gonna go in and do all the work they need to do.
So the pavers are going back in?
Yes, yeah, they were all saved, so they came out, they've all been saved, they're gonna go back in. They had to settle, but then it became the contractor was gonna do the work, bailed and did another job, and, it's a small project, we don't do a lot of it, so, and there's only certain people who do it particularly well, so Brian has literally been working the phones.
there a
to get
clerk of the
somebody-
works?
This I think is already covered, thankfully.
Yeah.
I hope nothing goes bad with this. So those are also happening, but those will be updates fairly, I met actually this morning about that. So there should be some updates on Facebook in the next, if not the end of the week, beginning of next.
Okay, great.
Like,
Going good.
yeah, likewise, I've had several inquiries on Jerusalem Road, and I suspect they're probably different people, just because everybody's asking about it. And separately, some time ago, the topic came up in a meeting with respect to a network diagram, and I haven't forgotten.
Well, as a matter of fact, I met with Ron today about that. So tomorrow, I'm going to get the first look at it, and the first of all the documentation, and he's going on vacation next week. And the consultants are in the final stages of putting the map, the whole diagram together, so not next week, the week after, he promises I'm gonna see it on my wall, or at least on my computer, so, it's very timely, we actually talked about it just today, so.
Okay.
And I will be looking at the documentation tomorrow, so,
Great.
Super.
So he's
so-
making good progress.
He is, and in fact, he said they're within a week of getting the whole thing done, so.
I'm curious, so he did go out and get a consultant to help him
He-
complete it?
Yes.
Good.
Yes, he did.
Thank you.
So what's on the agenda for the fall? What projects is he gonna be working on in the fall?
I know e-permitting installation is a big deal, getting that vendor picked and then implemented. And then we have to vet out, document management, really, kick the tires and get a plan for document management.
So he's gonna work on both those.
Oh,
That's
yeah,
good.
yeah. Digital learning is, one of the goals is also to hopefully peel, and also help that stuff with this. One of the things is to get Bart is hopefully gonna come, the deputy, a little bit off, the school's stabilized. They're adding another body over there, that they actually just hired, which is great, so we'll get a little more time on this side and do some more strategic work. Because there's other bigger strategic things to do in terms of software. Financial software, a bunch of other things we have to plan for those too, so that's coming along. And by the way, the last phone installation is the water department. They've never been a part of our phone system before. In fact, I got a call from Bill Quigley today, it was a 4-digit dial. I'm like, wow, it said William Quigley on my phone. And I 4-digit dialed Ted Carroll the other day.
Wow.
So we can actually talk to each other. And the water department's the last one. They're going in the next week or so, and then the entire town will be on the phone system for the first
I
time.
mean, that is gonna save.
Congratulations.
Save an unbelievable
On
amount of
payroll,
time.
on the phone.
Yeah.
Do you get caller ID
Well,
from
y-
external?
yes and no. So we're still, some of the old Centrex lines are still in use, and they don't have caller ID. So it depends on what lines the call comes in on. So I asked Ron about that today, and he's gonna tweak. They still have to do some tweaking once the system is not fully implemented.
They'll get rid of all the Centrex, right?
Yes, yeah, they just haven't done that yet because they're in the fail-safe. Make sure everything works, kick the tires 3 times, and then those all go away. And then we won't have full caller ID. We have partial caller ID. We have internal caller ID now, which you didn't have.
That's good.
Which is really helpful, so.
Next, you'll have pictures of your face.
Well, we can talk about that in a second if you want me to, so.
No, that's all right.
No, I don't mean pictures, but we have IDs, there are 10 IDs that everyone's gonna be wearing too, so.
Are the selectmen getting IDs too?
If you'd like them, yes, absolutely, we can get photo IDs, absolutely.
Diane needs them.
I don't.
Are you on to
I
me?
gotta know.
Actually, just a couple of quick things. I did speak to, as I mentioned earlier, Patrick O'Connor regarding monies that might be out there for town hall. The ADA is probably the best option because they can give you a block grant for specific item for American Disabilities Act. It's typically gonna be elevators, ramps, and I know there's gonna be a ramp out front, there's gonna be an elevator probably added to the building here, or modification of it. That monies can come directly from the state or from the federal government. And the mid-July numbers were fairly good for the state, although for the last fiscal year, they were down a touch. Chapter 70 monies are up $30 per student. Chapter 90 monies are out there yet, but they'll probably be about what they were last year. The aid to cities and towns is up a little bit, I think it's up 3%. And the special ed circuit breaker actually was cut, and it was level funded, so compared to last year, it's down about 2.5%. That's all I have.
So to piggyback on that, just because it's topical, that is the cherry sheet, that is the most updated cherry sheet numbers that literally came out today. Very little change. So our local aid has stayed stable, thankfully, despite the, again, Paul points out there's been some tweaks with special ed. The library went down a little tiny bit for some reason, I don't know why, and our mosquito control went up a little tiny bit, but nothing that's gonna change anything. And everything else is stable, so, fortunately, at least at this point, the budget looks pretty good. And we'll see how it all shakes out. The state still has a lot of work to do to get stuff together. And I'll have our final year-end number, the first cut of them fairly shortly, but the year ended pretty good. Not on a rocket like last year when I think Toll Brothers took out 10 permits in the last 2 days of the month, but pretty good. Just so everyone, just a quick Bound Brook update. It's been posted on the website. And again, if you want to see a photo, that's a photo which I'm distributing to electronically, but that is a picture of it as well. The work, it continues this week with backfilling. Now, all the concrete work's done, it's all tested, it's all done. It's all poured, it's all tested, it's all approved.
Cured, okay,
It's all cured. What they're doing now is they're raising the grade, and it's a 6-inch at a 6-inch at a time. So it's compacted set. That's going on this week. It'll be going on all week. When the grade's been brought up sufficiently, the new water main will be installed and tested. That should happen Friday, Saturday. The contractor, at no expense to the town, will be starting Saturday work, and has asked for potential a Sunday date. We said, let's talk about it. We're okay with Saturdays at this point during the day if it's gonna get this project done faster. And they've been put on an expedited schedule, so, after.
What got him moving?
Lots of
things.
conversations, so.
Okay.
We'll talk more, but, they've been working every day, thankfully, and there's a lot more work to do, so, the last.
So August, they should be wrapping it up, huh?
It has to be, the easements are gonna expire. And, so, we've laid out a pretty strong position. We had a meeting with the contractor yesterday, and, we're making progress, so.
That's good.
Yeah, we're getting there. I'm looking forward to driving over that road. As is everyone in Houston.
Yeah, a lot of people are.
I did also distribute to you, the board, a one-page on the Massachusetts Coastal Camera Project. There is no contract in place, so I apologize for all the confusion about everything going on last meeting. There are cameras that have been installed. They are not activated. They are not live. They will not be live. And I talked to the company that's been doing the work. They won't be live until the board formally authorizes them to be live. If the board doesn't authorize it to be live, they'll be removed and they will go to some other harbor. I've been trying to get the folks down. It was impossible to get them down for this meeting, so I'm shooting for the 8th, if that works, to get the project team, including there's a representative for the Mass Harbor Master, so I was in the Harbor Master Hingham. He's been there, he's their lead point person on this project, and Hingham actually has installed the camera, so I'd be interested to hear his perspective and what's going on about it. I'm trying to get specs on the cameras. I'm getting the grant application so we can circulate to everyone so everyone knows what the project's all about. I've also asked for what other communities have adopted and what's going on and what the protocols are for this. So I'm told I will get all of those things, and then you'll get all of those things.
Yeah, the camera specs are 30x zoom, 1080p resolution, pan tilt zoom camera, ultra high definition, 4K fixed with thermal imaging. to be installed in each community.
So,
And I look at this, and I have to ask the
some of that
question.
may be considered for security purposes, so just.
Well, it's a public document.
Oh, okay.
Right, so, we could secure the hell out of it, but it's still a public document. And I am curious that type of equipment, times 4, adds up to several hundreds of thousands of dollars. And I can't believe for a moment that they magically appeared in this harbor without some sort of approval. And I don't understand how that can happen.
Again, so,
I mean,
this was.
this is for surveillance of our own people, basically, and I don't understand how it gets here without a signed contract. I can't believe anyone would cough it up.
And again, definitely a mistake on my part, had given a tentative green light to move this project along, not having had all the specs, didn't have a contract formally in place, because after formal review of all the documents, it's clear this is an IMA type agreement. It's not a grant document, which requires the board. You know, I guess they were in the area. I really have not had a chance to talk to the actual on-site project manager, which is another gentleman. I talked to his boss about this, about the specs of the project, and he's, you know, eager to come down and answer questions and talk through this. I am looking to move forward on this and get answers and get this all resolved. The cameras are not live. And by the way, the grant was it's a $1 million FEMA grant that was awarded to the Mass Harbor Masters, with $300,000 kicked in by the state of Massachusetts.
It's a secure encrypted microwave link transmission, right?
They're wireless.
Yeah. Do we know they're not live? How do we know they're not live? How can we certify?
Because they have to run through the town first, and the town hasn't turned it. There's no computer and there's no connection.
Anybody on that network can pick up the transmission. What they're supposed to do is just fine, but the monitoring on this goes to the Coast Guard, as well as this town, any adjacent town, and any related agency. So given where the Coast Guard exists, under Homeland Security, right, any related agency includes everything from FEMA to the NSA.
That is not what I was told by the company.
It's in the contract.
I can't speak to this.
I know.
Need to get.
I'm just,
I need to get the folks from the program in front of you to better explain.
So this is what we received in our packet, okay? A brief description with 2 out of what appears to be a 5-page contract, which is supposed to be signed by the town executive, BoS or mayor, right? And these show up here, and I can't believe that it's magic. It's great, if it is magic, can we ask them to bring a town hall? Right? I mean, this is, I don't understand this, and forgive me for being repetitive.
Work on finding what?
The issue here is really one of how many other things might exist under this that we don't know of, because it just happened to appear here. My question's twofold.
Okay.
One, this piece of surveillance is duly a subject for the board for a greater discussion.
Yes.
The other piece is, how did this get executed? Where did the process fall out of bed? And that's what I want, that's a whole separate question, right? That's a management question, right? And that's what I need to explore. I need to understand that, okay? And I look, you may come back to me and say, look, that's a conversation that has to be addressed in executive session. And I'm happy to hear about it, but the fact of the matter is, those are 2 separate items. One of which is a subversion of our duties, right? We're responsive to the electorate, period. So questions like this system going into our town is ours to address. The second one is, how did it get rerouted from us? And
Well,
that's the big one.
Well,
That's what I'm
again,
looking
if I may, respectfully, I have taken responsibility for the mistake of this process, okay? There is no need to go any further than this desk, okay? I've looked into it, it's stopped. There is no agreement in place. So nothing's live, nothing can go live, nothing can be monitored, nothing should be monitored. And I've been assured by the company that that's not happening.
Chris,
So
falling
the
on
process-
your sword, falling on your sword.
It's not falling on my
in
sword,
this-
it's taking responsibility
I appreciate
for
you taking
management.
responsibility, okay? But it doesn't answer the question, and if the question isn't answered, then it just leaves out it leaves open whether or not it happens again. And that's where I have the question with respect to the management of it. I appreciate that you're taking responsibility for it, but unless you tell me, and you can tell me right now, that you had given the word to go ahead and install them, right? That you personally have given the word, and I appreciate you taking responsibility, but it's just shielding something else that is a problem.
No, I hear you, and I want to burst that bubble right now. I don't want this to continue to fester. I gave approval to the project. I didn't give approval with any expectation that these were going to pop on a telephone pole. My understanding, and it was an incomplete understanding, okay, and I should have asked more questions at the time, was that this was the beginning of a longer process. I did not realize at the time this was the end of a long process.
But that's
This
the
had gone
point, it's
for
the
2
end of a
years.
long
It is,
process,
and
but it's the end of a process
it's
that
not-
we
it's-
needed to
this
be
is-
involved in.
You know, this is really about the process and not about
No,
you.
and the process.
I'm concerned that the public safety officials didn't get a look at this. You know, I'm concerned that Bill and Bob weren't involved in how this got put together.
So we, again.
They didn't even know
But the
about
town,
it
I want you
till
to
they saw
understand,
it on
the
the
town
plans.
didn't have anything to do with the big project either. There was a mass harbor masters program with the state. There's a small group of harbor masters who participate in the association on a very active level. But there's
Well, when an employee who
75.
doesn't have the authority to do this thinks they do.
I want you to understand that that's not the case here, okay? At the end of the day, there was bad communication.
None.
Again, there was bad communication, miscommunication, and it shouldn't have progressed this way, okay? And I am taking ownership of the situation as I should. I have talked to the, by the way, I also met with all of the chiefs and Lori today as part of a regular ongoing series of, let's make sure we talk to each other, because we're all really busy. And it's great that people talk to me, but I want them to talk to each other too. And this is one of the topics, so I'm gonna have the folks come down, so everyone's read into this thing. Now, one of the problems, and again, as I understand it, is that this came out of the Port Security and Harbor Masters Association, which is great, except at the state level, the harbor masters don't talk to the police, don't talk to the fire departments.
Yes, they do. I mean,
I-
every harbor master in the South Shore, except for Weymouth, is underneath the public safety department. So to say that is inaccurate.
I'm talking about it, as I understand it, at the state level. I'm talking with folks, I'm not talking about individual circumstances with individual towns, that's what I'm talking about.
Okay.
I'm talking about this project. This project was a Port of Boston project. It wasn't a Boston police project. The funding didn't come from the police or the fire department. It came through Speaker DeLeo, I'm told, is the one who moved the money. Is he from a coastal community? I should know.
No,
this,
it's-
but I
the bulk of the funds
didn't
came
want
from
to, I don't want,
FEMA.
we're getting
It's a
way
FEMA
deep.
grant. It's FEMA money.
No, but there was a state match of $300,000 that had to be allocated. It was done by the state legislature. I am coming up to speed, and I haven't even seen the grant. The grant was listed 2 years ago. The town didn't have any participation in signing the grant. No town did. It was the state association that did this. I don't know the whole process for it. I really don't, and I can't speak to it. And I want to be able to answer every question that this board has, and by the way, anybody in the public too, because I had an anecdotal story from the gentleman who I spoke with at Landfill in a community on the North Shore. They presented to the board. The board said, voted 5-0 to put it into place, and there were 2 residents who were still very concerned. He took him to this guy went to coffee. He talked it through. I said, look, I don't know what the board is going to do here. I said, prepare to come in. I want every piece of information I can. The board will ask questions. I think I can't tell you how to focus, Steve, but I would prefer to focus on moving forward and getting answers on this project. I don't think there's any more, there's really, I am telling you as the town manager, I don't think there's any more to be gained by continuing to dig backwards. If you want to, I can't stop you, but I'm telling you, I don't think there's any more to be gained.
Well,
Here's the
maybe
point.
we need an executive, I'd like to request an executive session on personnel matters so we can talk about this.
Here's, before we go any further on that, let me just make this point. Chris, trying to figure out the process is not digging backwards. Not figuring out what took place is simply burying the problem. I will not do that.
No, I don't want either. I mean,
And
I'm not telling
We
you
have a
that.
history in this town of doing that and getting ourselves in really big trouble.
So here's, I understand, so,
You made the point earlier that you found out about this when it was just about at the end of the line. Well, guess what? This is stuff that we deal with, right? This is stuff that we deal with. So the fact that it's already at the end of the line and we haven't even heard of it, that's the problem with the process.
well, again, if you're talking about the process of the grant, I have none of this.
No, but it's a pattern. It's a pattern that we need to talk about.
Okay,
Then maybe we should go into executive
Yes.
session and talk
I
about.
don't know that that's appropriate, I think we have to talk about that.
Yeah.
Okay. We cannot talk about executive session, employees in executive session without their presence.
No, I agree.
And we can't talk about.
I'm not talking about tonight, I'm talking
No,
about.
but at all, it's not legit, you can't do that, it's not a legitimate purpose for executive session. You can't do it. The employees have, no employee can be talking about executive session without their consent. It's not possible.
I'm not looking.
I don't wanna
I'm not
this
looking at
point.
talking about an employee, I'm looking at talking about how this ends up showing up on polls, right, with no one knowing about it, and then saying, well, we don't have a signed contract, as if that's gonna absolve everything, or I take responsibility as if that's going to absolve it. It doesn't.
As I
You
said.
didn't know, Bill didn't know, Bob didn't know, I mean.
And it's, by the way, it's our job to decide whether or not we wanna be a part of it.
No, again, that is absolutely true. It should have gone that path, and I should have directed it that way.
Okay, then why don't,
And that's what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to get this back on path, so that the board can decide whether or not it wants to participate, and get you all the information to make that decision. That's what
So how do we prevent this ever from happening again?
Yeah, how do we prevent this from happening?
And by the way, I just wanna know, as part of the board, whoever made the decision, whoever told Lantel it's okay to go install these on some designated sites, which had to have been made in advance and approved by FEMA.
Somebody had to walk them
So
around
someone
and
had
pick
to
out
do
the
it.
holes.
So whoever did
Yes.
that, wait a minute, I just wanna know, after all it's said and done, who had the idea that that was okay for them to do? And why will that not happen again? That's what I wanna know,
Well,
why will it not happen again? What was the problem it was trying to be solved?
There's a lot of things that go on every day that don't reach my desk until there's a decision point.
But this was never supposed to be on your desk, it was supposed to be on ours.
No, I want you to understand, things go to my desk and then they get to your desk. That's how things are supposed to flow, right? So, when this got to my desk, I didn't direct it properly, okay? I didn't direct it properly, that's what happened, okay? I didn't direct it properly. It was, again, I can give you, it shouldn't have happened. It was my fault for not having read it thoroughly and not grasping what was going on. I remember the day that some of this came into my office, and I was in the middle of a million things, including some Bound Brook stuff, and I didn't think twice about it. I read some stuff on it, and that was as far as I got. I didn't direct it properly.
Did you actually say, this is okay, go ahead and run with it?
I said it looked okay to me, yeah. But I didn't expect things were popping up the next day. I really did not realize.
So
we're
the
at the end of
employee
the
came to you
process.
and asked for permission to do this, and you said
I
yes.
am
Answer
telling
the
you,
question.
yes.
You said
I
yes.
said,
The
look, I
employee
said the
came to
program.
you- The employee physically came to you and
And
said,
said,
look, I really wanna do
are we-
this.
yes.
And you
should
said,
we take-
fine, go ahead,
I
go
said
do
we
it.
should take part in this, yes. And I hadn't honestly read through all the materials. I'm,
Okay. All right, so the next step is
Meet with them.
meet with them.
Yeah, so I'm trying to
But
say.
from, and I would like to know, as a next step, how does this not happen in the future? Okay?
Okay, that's fair. That's a
How does
fair
that,
question.
how does this not
It's
happen?
a fair question.
And I think it gets back to the whole issue around having a core group of people that you work with all the time, not 15 direct reports, 6. So we really need to get serious about how we're gonna do this, you know?
And I completely agree with you.
Okay.
And as a result of this, I have been doing that. So I haven't been
Good.
waiting. So,
Help us help you. I mean, we wanna make this work, right?
I agree. And one of the things that's gonna help me a lot with this, in general, on the harbor, is to have this harbor committee which you've appointed tonight.
Yeah.
Which is not gonna be a subject matter reserved for these kinds of things and a place for it to go.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not an expert on the harbor matters, right? I'm just not. Whether it be lighting or docks, I mean.
And you're not supposed to.
No, I know.
That's not your job.
And that's why it's great. And the town hasn't had that infrastructure, right? We have an
Yeah.
advisory committee, we even have a cable advisory committee. We haven't had a harbor committee. We have we have a staff that manages and maintains the moorings and the day-to-day operations.
Yes.
That's it.
And they do a great job.
And they don't do policy, right?
Right.
So we haven't had anybody do policy in the harbor.
We have not.
And again, so I think you've already taken a gigantic step, Jack, in getting this by getting a harbor committee together, and a great group of folks that were picked. Because that's gonna help tremendously. Now there's a place for this stuff to go.
Yeah.
Plus, it's gonna be a harbor plan, right? One of the other things is, it won't be ad hoc anymore. You know what my answer on stuff on the harbor is now? Harbor committee.
No, and
Right.
look, Chris,
Yeah.
you know, this is not personal at all. I mean,
No,
and
no, no,
you're
and I'm-
absolutely right when you say that. You know, and you know, harbor governance is really important. And you know, when I think it was Tom said tonight, we're so far behind everybody else. It's not a reflection on.
no.
There's just never been any thought put into how do you govern the harbor? What's a well-governed harbor look like? I mean, and there's so many good examples around. You know,
Yeah.
I mean, you know, you got all the Cape
Well,
Towns,
that's-
you got all the South Shore.
That's what
You
the
know,
harbor
and we
committee will do.
need to get there. We need to get there quick. You know.
I agree, and again, so we have a path now.
Yep.
So, mistake made, I'm laying it out, again, I'm not perfect, right? This was and by the way, this counts as I get it, I mean, it was a mistake, it was more than a mistake. It's been adjusted, I've put it back on the right track. And I'm not only taking responsibility for it, I've taken active steps to make sure it's not gonna happen again, by working within the structures that we're now setting up.
Okay.
So I hope that helps answer your
Yeah.
question. And that's, other than that.
Anything else?
That's
No?
all I have.
How else was Dallas?
Let's,
Minutes
the
of,
Cunningham Bridge has been
Little more
posted.
Novocaine, sir?
The Cunningham Bridge materials have been posted regularly. I think I've been trying to keep all of you up to date.
You've done a great job.
The state has done
Yeah,
a.
keep those postings as far as what's
Yeah.
going on with this project. The citizen reaction I'm getting is they like hearing updates, even if it isn't good news, so please
They're working
Bound
tonight, by the way,
Cunningham.
so, this is the first night of the
We
project.
should
Let's
do
get the new-
Selectman drive-by.
Exactly, just don't try to drive over the bridge tonight. That's
Yeah,
all.
yeah. Oh, is it?
They closed it because they're putting the
Yeah.
first,
Conduits.
the temporary utility bridge.
Bridge, yeah.
And, I've gotten some good feedback from residents randomly about this. The project manager came on site the other day at 11 o'clock at night, talking with the state project manager, to move a piece of equipment that somebody left in a bad location. So they are showing a degree of responsiveness, and it's the right way to start the project.
Well, and
I'm grateful
also,
for that.
key word, you said project manager, there was a project
Yes.
manager, and that's
The state is a project manager.
part of what they do.
Yep.
right? That's the right way
It's
to do it.
living and learning.
Yeah.
Well, we're warming up for town hall, you know?
Yeah.
But by the time
We're
we
gonna
get
be
to town
pros.
hall.
We'll have this down.
Clerk of the works, accounting,
Yeah.
paperwork.
Well, and Shane's been involved from the
All right,
There was.
get-go.
10:35 and 85 degrees. Don't we have minutes to do?
What's your minutes now? You have 2 minutes?
We're up to minutes, 6/20, 2017.
I
and
move
6
approval of the 6:20 minutes.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Ask for approval of minutes of 6/27, 2017, Board of Selectmen meeting.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
I have no topics not reasonably anticipated by the chairman 48 hours in advance.
Move to adjourn.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.